At that time, can I get a roll call? I'd like to call the meeting to order.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mrs. Galbraith?
Here.
Mrs. Gasparo?
Here.
Mr. Toure?
Here.
Secretary is I, and Dr. Hall?
Here, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For those timekeepers, we must start the meeting at exactly 7:15 by law. So that's what we're waiting for.
You want to do this? You're gonna do it. All right.
We're going to go.
That's the same thing. When you get them like that and you don't have a way to contact them, what are you going to do? So have you, I'm sure you can get this number. Have you, I heard you have a process today of working on the
Board members, I do need you back at your microphones. We do have to take a vote to open the hearing. Where'd they go? Are they going to the restroom? Okay. Still have 3 minutes, okay.
Reset slideshow, go out there, I win. Last time I trust you.
While we're waiting a couple of minutes, I do want to take the time to thank those who were able to attend our forum last evening for coming out. I do believe that it was informative and the dialogue was very productive in my opinion. And we are looking to definitely do more of those, even if we do go back to our cafes as we used to do, where we would go around to the different villages, 2 board members at a time, just to have discussions on certain topics. So if you have any ideas for topics, feel free to fill out a concern resolution card that is located in all of our buildings, as well as our village halls and our libraries, I believe. All the libraries?
Yep.
Okay. And let us know what you would like for us to discuss, and we will take that into consideration. I am going to ask for a motion to open the tax levy hearing 2015. Moved by Mrs. Gasparo,
Second.
second by Mrs. Sanders. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, we will prepare to start our hearing.
Oh, she's doing the presentation. You need your glasses?
Good evening. Can everyone hear me? Great, great. We do have for you today a few slides on our tax levy. First, I'd like to start by explaining the difference between a tax levy and a tax levy extension. The tax levy is actually an estimate of what we anticipate receiving, and the extension is the actual amount that is issued to taxpayers throughout the district. It's important to remember as we go through this presentation that school districts will receive no more than requested and no more than they're entitled to by law. This slide further indicates just that. It shows our tax levy, our request, versus what is actually extended dating back to 2009, with the blue representing what we've actually requested and the gold representing what was extended. As you can see, each year we've asked for a larger amount than we've received. Why do we ask for more than we receive? Because there are several unknown factors in the tax levy process. As you can see on this slide, I've indicated the things that we know. We know the value of our property from last year and what was extended last year. We know what the consumer price index is, and for this particular levy, it's less than 1%, 0.8% for the 2015 year. But we don't know some critical factors in this process. As you can see, we don't know the value of properties that will be determined in 2016 for the 2015 year. We don't know the value of new property. We don't know how many homeowner exemptions we'll have or how many senior citizen exemptions we'll have. So to account for all of those unknown factors, we ask for more than we're entitled to, and the law protects our taxpayers by reducing that amount once those figures are known. This slide shows you the history of the consumer price index. As you can see, it's not been very great in the past few years, less than 1% again for 2015. Just last year, it was 1.5%. The property tax extension limitation law limits our increase to 5% or the consumer price index, whichever is less. So your taxes should never go up more than 5% or the consumer price index. So for this year, that would be less than 1%. That would be on the tax bills you receive next year. This slide shows you the value of property dating back to 2006, along with the value of new property. The new property is shown in gold at the top. As you can see, the amounts are very, very low for new property in recent years. But I wanted to show you in this slide that our high point in 2010 was roughly $766 million. That was the value of all of the property within the district, all of the existing property within the district. And last year, hopefully, was our low point at $549 million. This year, we're expected to increase 1.5%. So this will be the first year in several years that we're expecting an increase. Those are the preliminary estimates provided by Will County. Now, with that said, I must tell you that last year, the preliminary estimates for the county were $13 million off. This slide shows you the relationship between the value of the property and the actual tax rates. The top graph shows you the value of property. Again, you see the high number, 778 million. That's the new property plus the existing property, and the low number last year of 549 million. It has an inverse relationship to the tax rate. So as the property values go down, you can see each year that the tax rate is increasing. I'm sorry?
You're going to take questions later. Why it went down so much?
The value of property due to the Great Recession. The value of property has decreased significantly since 2009 as a result of the recession, of course. Hold on. Okay, so what are we anticipating for this year? The tax levy is estimated by fund, as you can see, with our capped funds totaling $40.3 million. That is what we are anticipating. Now, I want to talk to you briefly about the bond and interest because that's been a hot topic as of late. This particular year, the bond and interest portion of your tax bill is going to decrease about 15%. Every year for the following 8 years, there will be a substantial increase, on average 6%, till the end of our current bond debt. This slide further depicts that. As you can see, going back to 2013, we were roughly around 11 million. Then it went up slightly in 14. Now we're showing the decline that we're talking about for the current levy, down in the 9s. And then, as you can see, a steep increase over the next 8 years. So what does all this mean to you as it relates to your tax bill? The district is going to request a 10% increase, but the actual increase we expect to receive, again, is tied to that consumer price index that we referenced earlier. So we're expecting to receive an increase of roughly $300,000, less than 1%. The county will reduce the amount that we receive once they've determined what the property values are. This slide simply recaps everything that I've discussed thus far, and I'd be happy to address any questions from the audience at this time as it relates to the tax levy. Yes, sir.
You mentioned that the value of the homes are decreasing based on the EVA. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. The equalized assessed valuation.
Correct. And then it gets adjusted by the equalizer. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Because obviously, the same amount needs to be collected, if not more than the previous year. So as a result, by my calculations and many experts, what ends up happening is the value of the taxes that are collected continue to rise as a percentage, which like in some areas could be 2, 3, 4%, but in other areas could be upwards to 5% of our value of our homes. So as a result, it's unfortunate that the value of our homes as they decline, the percentage that we pay in taxes being 5% of the value of the true value of our homes still continues to rise.
Well, the individual value of your home is determined by the assessor. We have no control over that. So we have no control over how much your individual property increases. Everything that I discussed today was in relation to all of the property in totality.
Right. And then what I've been reading also is because of two factors which affects, the school district, of course, one being deficit spending and the other adding on more debt. Do you feel, and this was unfortunate that I wasn't able to be here last night because I had other obligations. And was that discussed last night?
Well, actually, sir, you came at a perfect time because we are going to have a presentation regarding the debt in the next few minutes after the hearing.
Excellent. Then maybe I'll have more questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But to answer your question, Mr. Gaffney, your question was answered last night. And it will be responded to you on the website by Friday.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sanders.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so that means we're gonna have an increase in our property tax?
Yes, sir, you will probably have an increase in your property taxes, but again, I don't know the value of your individual property. I can't speak to that, but overall, we will see an increase. Did you have a question, sir?
Everyone else property tax, their property tax is going down.
I'm looking at the value of people's homes are impacted by whatever their value homes were $400,000 to $500,000, some thousand, so they don't went down. They get much less value for their homes. Should you all hold the line on your spending and request less on homeowners where they wouldn't have to pay them any increase? I mean, to me it seems ambiguous. You asking? I heard you say earlier, you always ask for more than you get. Why is that? Ask for what you exactly need, and that's it.
Because we don't know how much we will get, because we don't know what the property values are at the time that we're required to submit the levy.
But the homeowners are getting hit double. They get hit, their property went down, and yet still their property taxes that you are asking for, so they're going to hit them again. The value of their homes are through the floor, but still they're going to get an increase.
I understand that, sir, and as a homeowner, I feel your pain, but at the same time, the cost of all of the purchase supplies and services and salaries and benefits, all of those things increase in price as well. The law is set up to protect you, however, by capping the increase at 5%. And again, we're not going to see a 5% increase. We're going to see a 0.8% increase for the 2015 year.
Do you have an idea of what the homeowners, the average of their taxes is going to be?
I can, if you'd like, I can look at your individual home and try to give you an estimate of what that number would look like.
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Ms. Oh.
Okay, I just walked in, so I understand I wasn't here to get the information. I wasn't notified. Someone just called me like 15 minutes ago and said there's a meeting, they raising the property taxes in Crete. So, first of all, is this about raising property taxes in Crete?
Yes, ma'am. On an annual basis, we're required to adopt, the Board of Education rather, is required to adopt a tax levy for taxes for the next year.
Okay, then my first question would be, why wasn't I notified as a property owner? I'm not a brand new property owner, so I should certainly be on the record. I mean, how do we have these meetings and homeowners, taxpayers are not notified?
Ma'am, a notice was issued in the Daily Southtown as it relates to the hearing that's being
They
held.
were issued where?
It was published in the newspaper. I
In
believe
what kind of paper?
it was published in the Daily Southtown Star. I believe it was published last Tuesday. Was that the 8th?
So if I don't get that paper or don't go by that paper, I wouldn't know that the meeting was going to take place. Is that what you're saying?
The information is also posted on the district's website as well as at our school sites. But it's an annual event that occurs during the December board meeting. So if it's something of particular interest to you, it's always part of the December board meeting.
Well, let me say, I've been here quite a few years, and maybe my thinking is different. But if it's going to affect those of us who are paying taxes, I think we should be notified. I mean, why can't notices be sent out to property owners? What about all the folks that are not here because nobody called them and say, I heard there's a meeting going on tonight to raise taxes? It just doesn't seem logical to me. No, I don't. But taxes went up a few years ago when they built Crete Monee High School. And mine went up about $3,000. I can't take another hit like that. So that's why I'm here tonight. And as a property owner, I think I have a right to be notified. If you pricing me out of my home that I've been there for 15 years, I think I should be notified.
Ma'am, this is the process that all municipalities, schools, your park district, we all are required to go through the same process.
But to further add, if I may, Dr. Williams, the Board of Education worked diligently in making sure that as many people throughout the school district avail of the information. In recent years, I agree with you, I sat in for many years alone. There was no individual in the audience for the tax levy, so I understand.
They're not notified.
Well,
you don't just dream this up and show up.
Again, last night at the forum, we sent out notifications to every person in this.
I don't know if you want to continue this, but maybe you can explain to me that the cost to send everybody a postcard would be thousands. There are thousands.
Extracted information, email information, because we don't have a student here. Unless we send it, postal, pager postal, then you're not going to get it. So I hope, again, that you can leave that information. We did post it in the Daily Southtown Star, as well as the Southland Voice and the Monee Monitor, to provide a wider span of distribution.
You know, let me say, I'm a little bit surprised that the property owners are putting up with this. I truly am, because I'm certainly not going to put up with it. I mean, you're going to go up on my taxes and it's notify me. I think it's kind of disrespectful, quite frankly. Send a notice home, send a letter out, take an email, any kind of notification would be better than none at all.
Now, are you aware that your village has a tax levy meeting also?
No.
So does the municipal,
Everything listed on your tax bill.
everybody has one of these meetings.
saying that's an excuse, we have taxpayers as well, and you should know, but we only have a certain amount of means in which to do that. And I'm gonna be honest with you, we even this year sent out at the district's expense, your expense as a taxpayer, a state of the district newsletter, and that it goes every building, every
That's a little tidbit for her too. Tell Ann she's got a mic, she can tell us.
You want to tell her that the tax assessor sends a notice of advance notice of tax assessments well in advance, and they'll tell you what their taxes are. And that's up to the tax assessor. It's not really the school district that does that. You may want to mention
That doesn't tell her how much the tax bill is going to be.
So the time to complain to the assessor.
And that's generally how it's happening. We have children in the district. We saw some family members who are older. So I did what she's saying. The same way we can get robocalls from the principals, there should be a robocall about this meeting. We didn't get that. We didn't get no mailing notification. The only notification that we got was from the school. Yeah, that was it. So absolutely the same way it was crowded with Crete Monee, it should be overwhelming or crowded right now. You know, so absolutely, there definitely needs to be a better way to get the information for this type of movement out there. You know, by all means necessary.
I think the issue is when you don't have a child in the district, you're not getting this information. I don't have a child in the district either, but my taxes go up because of the school. You know, and I ditto with these other guys that we're not informed because we don't have students in the district. But we're informed when the taxes are going to go up. We're informed about any other financial issues that we have. When the water goes up, everything else, we get a notice about that. Maybe a new system needs to be developed because everybody doesn't have a child in the schools. And it's real unfair to a taxpayer that pays their taxes not to be notified of these meetings because we're concerned about the community that we live in also. And everything is directed to people with children. You know, so maybe a new system needs to be developed because I heard through a friend an hour ago. I called her. I didn't know anything about this stuff. And I travel a lot. I'm not reading the little flyers that come in the mail. I consider that junk mail a lot of times and toss it. I mean, some of it, just like the village wants payment, we want notification. You know, and that goes for the people that don't have children in the district.
I wanted to say something to her, but I figured it would start a fight when she said, get up.
That lady over there, that it's beginning to be too much. It's starting to get too much. You know, how much this is going is my paycheck ain't going to this tax listed. You know, that's not fair. I understand you got things you got to pay for, but you know, I ain't getting paid as much as you guys are taking out. My pay rate is not keeping up. We can't meet the cost of what's going on, and it's like she said, it's getting out of control. There's got to be a better way to do this than the way it's going, because it's not fair to everybody. Because there are people who don't get done at all. You know, I'm talking about corporations. That's another thing.
I just want to let you know that there's a proposal in Springfield. To freeze, no, this is different. To freeze property taxes for the next couple of years. It's a bipartisan effort at this point. Madigan has, Michael Madigan is the Speaker of the House. Probably some of you may know that. Been for 30 years or so, with the exception of the 2 years that he wasn't. So he's an iron-fisted guy that runs the House of Representatives, the House down there. There's a proposal from the new governor to freeze property taxes for 2 years. The state loses nothing by doing that because property taxes do nothing for the state. It's all local. So there's a possibility this will pass because the state has nothing to lose. They're not gaining any money by freezing the property taxes because they don't get any of it anyway. That's my understanding of it. It all goes to local municipalities and cops and firemen and schools. The biggest chunk goes to schools. So I would recommend that you call your elected representative or email him or her and say, I agree with freezing my property taxes for the next 2 years, if that's what you feel. That's one method you can deal with this.
Behind.
I'd like to say I live in a neighborhood where there are 65 homes. Out of the 65 homes, you have probably 24 homes that one person lives in due to the spouse passing away. Most of the people in our neighborhood are retired and they are on fixed incomes. They cannot afford a raise in their taxes. In a lot of homes, the values have gone down quite a bit. If we were to sell our home, we all take a cut in what the value is. And then where do you go? If you're retired, you go to Indiana, where the homes are going to cost you more than what you got for the home that you're in. You get a smaller home, and being retired in your 70s, you have a mortgage. It's just, people that are working don't realize this, but everyone that's retired and on fixed income cannot afford all these raises in their taxes. They just can't afford it. And this school board, you want to take on more debt. And how long are you in office or in your positions on the board? What is the next board going to do? And then blame it on the previous board, which is what our government does. They blame it on whoever was in office before. And the ones that are in office at the time are long gone when everybody suffers from what their decisions are.
Dr. Williams, in the presentation, if you could indulge me, actually go back a slide.
Sure.
So I have the figures correct.
Farther?
The second from bottom bullet point.
Oh, this one?
Yes, please, thank you. The second to the last bottom bullet point is that the board's plan was to request an increase of 10%, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In the previous graph that you showed, it goes from 2004 to present, it showed the highest that there you go.
This one?
No, the one after that, I'm sorry. Shows, this shows what the tax rates are, shows that we've been at, no, that's not that, I apologize. The highest increase was probably.
I know which one you're talking about. This one.
There you go. So the highest increase since 2004, just over 4%.
Yes.
But the board was planning on asking for a 10% increase. Did they expect something from the economic returns that the CPI would be anywhere near 10%? That's why they're asking for that?
No. We asked for more because we don't know how much new property we will have, and we don't know how accurate the estimates provided by the county are.
Okay.
So we're not going to get 10%. We're going to get 0.8%.
Well, thank goodness you're not getting 10% because I could get enough for sale side. But is the is the budget set up then with the prediction of a 10%, and that's how the budget is set for next year?
No, sir. No, sir. The budget for next year has not been determined, but no, sir, there is no plan for a 10% increase in spending.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I only got one question. Are you getting any other revenue besides us, the taxpayer, than the property tax? Are you getting this from someplace else?
Well, we do receive state revenue, just under.
They don't have a budget yet, right?
I know. But the majority of our revenue does come from local property taxes.
That's it.
Yes, sir. The majority of it. I mean, we receive some revenue from registration fees and corporate personal property replacement tax, and I believe 6% revenue from federal funds, but the large majority of it is from local taxpayers.
Is it more like over 50% of it is coming from us?
Yes, sir.
Now, I don't want to put this on you, but we need to, if we keep getting these then the learning need to increase better too.
Natalie?
I'd like to make just one more comment. The problem, in my estimation, is not necessarily your tax levy. The problem is deficit spending and adding on the debt that you're adding on. I'd like to get it right on the head. When you do things like that, you're doing exactly what the state of Illinois has been doing for years. You've been working on a deficit budget, and then you go on and add more debt. Now, I understand what you're trying to accomplish by giving an excellent schools to our community, which is wonderful. However, you have to understand that the quality of the building doesn't mean quality education. Taking on more debt and adding to that particular problem is maybe doing exactly the opposite of what you were intending. What you would end up doing is raising the bar so high for people to pay their taxes instead of attracting new families and attracting the base of what you would want is more people to come in the community to spread the pain of all the taxes. Instead of doing that, the opposite happens. People then move out of the area and less homes will be available to carry the burden, which then creates a downward spiral of the tax burden on the people that remain. And as a result, you end up with a situation that gets worse and worse and worse. And if you don't address the situation now, if you don't balance your budget, if you don't handle your finances, you will find yourself in the same situation as many suburban school districts. I read an article online, and if anybody would like a copy of it, it says, and this is from an economist, his name is Mark Lemon, and the headline is Suicidal Property Taxes and the Collapse of Chicago's South Suburbs. That's exactly what's happening. And that's, you can draw a line from Halsted Street straight down through Rich Township, Bloom Township, Rich Township, and the taxes have gotten overburdened over 5% of the true value of people's homes. So as a result, people say they've had enough and they move. And that's not what you want to happen. You want to attract people with your quality of education more than the sparkly, beautiful buildings that we have. Thank you.
Good evening. Are there any bonds that the school district has that can be refinanced?
The presentation that will come shortly after we're finished with the hearing will review that piece. Yes, there are a portion that can be restructured. They can't be refunded, but they can be restructured, and that will be presented by our bond consultant very shortly.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, as taxes go up, the debt is increasing, we have to build this, we think we need that, we keep adding to what we owe, we're already in the hole. How is the district, you want me to eat rice and beans, so I can pay the tax bill. How is the district eating rice and beans? I know the last night you told me you shaved $2 million off of your $73 million budget. That's not even 3% off. How can we close a couple of schools? I mean, our schools are at 57% full. They're not even full. Can we shove them all in, between Salala and Monee? Can we close Crete and Delmoro? Why is CSK only half filled?
The administration is working on an efficiency plan, and we will be making recommendations to further close that gap later this year, probably around February timeframe. We'll be finalizing those recommendations and presenting them to the board for consideration. But we are cutting back. We have cut our deficit substantially, and in a future report, you'll hear our audit results and how that deficit has decreased.
Well, my concern is that, I don't know if you'll have questions after your next presentation, but my concern is that we've already started to build an addition onto the middle school. We don't even know what we have. We have classrooms that are empty, according to notes from home before, saying, that we are 42% empty. So why do we need to build more classroom space if the ones we have aren't filled? And I know that there's this building has cockroaches and that building has mold problem, but can we put all the kids in the buildings that don't have that or fix one or two of them? But, if we close Crete Elementary and sell it to the Crete Village, you just saved a bunch of money, made some money, and you don't have to pay somebody to mow their grass anymore. I would like to see some hard decisions and hard cuts, because you're asking the base population to do just that. You want us to cut the cable bill, downsize our cell phone plan, eat rice and beans, and sell a car so you can pay our tax bill. But the district still wants to live high on the hog. Where is the district's first step in this of cutting their costs?
Well, as I stated, we're working on an efficiency plan, and I would invite you out to our finance meetings. We have them once a month where we discuss all of the things that would potentially impact our taxpayers at the end of the day. But we will be finalizing recommendations for the 15-16 school year. No, this is 15-16, 16-17 school year within the next month, and we will be presenting that to the Board of Education for consideration in February.
Where do you meet? I'm sure it's on the website somewhere.
Yes, it's on the website. The Finance Committee meets the first Wednesday of every month typically, but it's posted on the website if there are any changes.
And where do you meet?
We meet at the Administration Building, 1500 Sangamon. Do some more.
Like the original question that was posed by my wife, this gentleman stated also, making the district more attractive for new homeowners who will have a stake in this tax burden also. I don't mind paying taxes as long as I know the school district is producing something, to be proud of. Steady cut, rice and beans scenario. Maybe I can sell a car still. But nevertheless, the bottom line, I don't know if I want to cut.
But at the same time, you know, my son wants to go to the school next year, but I don't know if I'm gonna let him. Even though I say he got to pay for it, you know? So that means I'm gonna probably pay for him to go somewhere else, private maybe, you know? So I need this board to make this thing attractive to me, to everybody who has a stake in keeping this thing alive. Because I have no problem with what we did that life. You know, so there you go, another 10 grand to go. You know, that's what I think. And you saying I'm going up possibly a 0.82. Let's make it attractive and get more people to move in this district. You know.
You got one in the back too.
I've listened to most of the comments that the concerned homeowners and neighbors are concerned with. And my biggest concern with our district right now, I'm with him, I don't mind the taxes, I know you have to pay what you say. I don't have a problem with that. But right now, this district is being embarrassed on social media. And I know this isn't really, it really doesn't have anything to do with the tax levy, how our funds are distributed. But I'm kind of caught between a rock and a hard place because I have a junior here and my son says CSK. And I don't know if I'm going to stay here after my daughter graduates next year. So again, the spending and what's going on in the high school about these fight videos, it's very embarrassing. So, you know, when you see decent grades and you compare to the riches and the different communities in the area and you see progress, or at least staying at a positive level, then I don't mind a slight increase in my property taxes. I didn't move out here to pay $1,500 in property taxes. That's not what I moved out here to pay for. But again, I think as far as how we look as a district and as a community, this is very embarrassing.
I will agree with you with the high school. I have 2 kids in high school and I have 2 kids at CSK. CSK is a wonderful school, but the high school, it starts at the top from the board on down. I had an issue. The superintendent didn't even return my phone call. Called the principal. The principal didn't even return my phone call. I was waiting to have this meeting. I started from the top. First I talked to the teacher, then I go to the principal, then I go to the superintendent. Superintendent don't even return phone calls. So then the principal don't return the phone call. Only person returned the call was the teacher. Then I still went to the school, talked to the athletic director about the issue that I had. I know the superintendent got the email because she CC'd me, the teacher, the athletic director, the superintendent, and the principal. And they still haven't returned my call. It's going on 2 weeks. I'm dissatisfied with the high school right now. I'm like the other parents. I don't even want my other 2 kids going. I don't mind paying taxes. I'm like, I just want to know my kids are getting taught. They're not getting taught nothing in schools. All they're doing is paper, 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 paper. What happened to the books? When I grew up in high school, I went to Crete, we had books. These kids don't even work out of books. I tell my kids, don't go to homework day. Come on, I'm helping you with your homework. Bring your book home. We're going to look at your book. But they're not teaching about the book. I don't know what's going on. It's that education. I'm not paying the taxes. That's fine. If the taxes go up, that's fine. Get some good teachers in the school that want to teach the kids. And that's the problem. That's the problem. That's the board, the principal, everybody got to be on the same team. If everybody not on the same team, we're not getting no good education. So why should we stay? Why should we pay these taxes? And that's why I'm here tonight about the meeting. I don't care if the taxes can go up, but let me know you got smart boards in the classroom. Make sure the teachers are using the smart boards. walk through these classrooms. It's a lot of teaching students. A lot of kids don't want to understand. I work in special ed, they don't. But that's the teacher's job to find extra ways to help all these kids learn. And if you don't, get some extra teachers in the classroom. You got all these A's, 300 and some A's around the class, in the field, 300, and what, 54 A's? Them A's don't have to stay in one classroom. They can walk around and help other classes. That's what I did. I was an A and I walk around, I help all teachers, I copy everything, I say that this, it didn't matter. That was my job to help the kids. And I wanted to make the difference. These teachers, I'm just gonna pass them on through to the next class. They turn it more late times than anything because they want, oh, I want my kids to pass. I don't know like to feel. I heard the principal say, oh, we give them another chance to redo it over and over. You're not teaching them enough because when they get a job, can they even do that job? No. So with that being said, we need some new teachers, new principals that's ready to do his job. Everybody starts at the top. Superintendent, everybody. The board, come on, get on the damn bag with the parents. Hey, I'll help out if you need me. Ask the assistant principal. They know I've been to the high school a couple of times this year. If you need me, call me.
Hi, my concern on this taxes, I'll be here 32 years in February, and we moved out to built our dream house and moved out to the furthest east part of our district, east of 394, and it has now become kind of a rental area, which we don't even know how. Our association still works on that. I personally have 2 houses across the street and one next to me that are all empty and foreclosed, sitting by my dream house. They're owned by, say, slumlords. They don't care who moves in. I want to cry because of what I see around me. But nobody is coming in that is able to even clean up the houses that are sitting by us. I had someone living in a foreclosed house across the street, paying nothing for 3 years, moved to Hinsdale, their child's going to go to DePaul. And I'm thinking, he saved all his money for sitting in a foreclosed house. So my situation is, I came from District 205 schools, Great Norwood, Dormant, Thornton, loved it, and parents always were supporters of every tax increase. I always said, I was brought up that way, I supported everything since I've been here. My kids went here, everything. I never thought I would come to the point where I'm going to be taxed out of my house. It's like, I want to cry every day. And nobody's going to be coming in. I won't even be able to sell my house eventually because nobody's going to want to buy it to pay the taxes. I'm on the fence on this. I want the best for the kids and stuff, but I'm having a hard time paying the bills too. So I don't know, we just have to get help from some other places. Like this gentleman said, where's it coming from? Are we paying like pretty much 90%, 80%? What is that figure that the local property owners are paying? I'm really surprised that more people are here tonight too. I understand if you don't have a child and you don't have the internet and you're just not, in that frame of mind to know and stuff. And I do feel that I don't want to say, I just need to tell you that because I am just a nervous wreck about all this. So good luck to everybody and just keep us in mind, please.
Try to remember that when we're done.
Well, I've been a taxpayer here for 40 years. And I look around this room, there's a lot of people who paid for a lot of years. And what we have to do, one thing only, when the board, school is run, it's time to vote, get low. That's the way we make changes, and we can make them quickly. And we can tell our neighbors, and we can talk to our neighbors, and we can talk to our friends and family members to get out and vote, and we can make a big difference for all of us. And keep the taxes down, we all have to pay taxes, we all know that. If this rate keeps climbing, climbing, climbing again, we have more schools, more additions on schools, pretty soon schools are going to dry up because, again, we talked about people moving out of the area and they're gone, retirement people passing away, nobody moving in, and taxes go on, people that live in this district. Still make a difference when you get out and vote. Our privilege of being American people.
I think everybody in this room, well, hopefully everybody in this room will agree that the same thing that I was saying up there, hold your teachers accountable. We have a lot of teachers in this district, the tenure, who really don't need to be in this district. That may be where your problem lies. That may be why our students are not learning what they need to be learning, why our scores are not going up. If you look at the teachers, evaluate the teachers, because my child had a class where he's honors and AP class and all of that, honors. You know, if you got all these students earning A's, but this one particular class, they're all failing. To me, that should have been a red flag screaming at you, saying that this teacher is not doing their job. It shouldn't be that many A students failing that class. So you need to evaluate these teachers and find out where your problem teachers lie. I don't know what this tenure is, I don't know how y'all can get around it, but there needs to be a way of firing these teachers who are not doing their jobs. Hold them accountable.
Hello everyone, I've been listening to all the comments as well. And one of the things the gentleman said over here is about getting out and voting. It's not just for the school district, it's for this whole area. We have no businesses in Crete. We have all this land around here. Nobody is trying to build homes though they're basically by itself. When are we going to get some businesses in the area? It's just not about the school district. It's about making everybody accountable for themselves. The mayor, everybody else. Everybody want to point fingers. Well, we do have a voice. So if we have a voice, we get out there and vote. I go vote every time there's an election, and I can tell you, it's not a lot of people out there voting. Okay? I can tell you that. There's not a lot of people out there voting. So if you want change, then come out and vote. They have a meeting at the village for every first and second Monday. I used to attend those meetings, and guess what? I was the only homeowner at those meetings. Nobody's coming out to those meetings. So we have to make a change. We gotta change it from when you say the top, that means all this old administration. We need businesses in here. There is so much land out here, and that can help compensate some of these expenses that we're about to incur. Thank you.
As we,
I could talk about a lot of stuff tonight, yes, but I'm going to focus on one thing I think is very important for all of us to think about, and that is, now, it's real easy to poke holes in everybody's efforts. My name is Jay Farquhar, I'm from Monee. I'd like to draw attention to this. I'd like to draw attention to something here. I hear a lot of you poking at some of the administration, ward. I personally want to tell you that when I was in the meeting last night, the most inspiring thing that I heard last night was Dr. Hartman. But while everything else was going on, I heard this man get up and present a vision that we can grab hold of. When we talk about the training and the development, things that are going on, I'll grab hold of that and I'll say, listen, you're going that far, I'll help you a little bit further. And that's what we need. We need to focus on positive, the opportunities, the potential that's here. Are we in a bad place? Not nearly as bad as we could be. We're in a good place. We got a lot of good potential. And yeah, can we have more businesses? Yeah, can we have a lot more of this? You want to invest money? Go ahead. You know, don't think that any one of the mayors or any other tax advisors or whatever else don't want to see more business. There's a lack of investment. And that comes, and it goes back to the tax issue on the property taxes. It's hard to invest when you have this issue in the state of Illinois where we have more tax bodies than anywhere else, any other state in America. And so when you look at that and you realize that there's a way to find alternate funding for education, as an example, that would be a huge difference. You've got Senator Beach, when he was in office, he was working towards that. Representative Riley's been working on that. There's some good initiatives there that if we could find alternate funding for education, putting on property taxes, they're huge. But again, going back to what one of the gentlemen said earlier, getting the representatives in Springfield to acknowledge that. I personally will pay more income taxes than if that's lowering property taxes, because then you're actually creating an environment with more potential for people to invest in our development. They're willing to invest, and then they only get taxed on the profitability, not just their survival. But until we're in a point where we can Springfield recognize the relevance and the imminence of the need to have that change, we have to work with the school district to figure out what's going to be necessary while they're tightening things up. And I hope that they are. I don't get as intimate with the details as I probably should. But I'm going to tell you, when I hear Dr. Harden talking about what he's doing, and Monique, who I spent a little bit of time with her last year when she was over at Monee Education Center, and Brian, who's over there now, it's encouraging to hear the vision that these people have for our youth. And without the vision, not only will, as scriptures say, people perish, we'll have no potential. We have to have that vision. We have to find those people, and they may not be perfect. I'm sure that we'll all acknowledge that whatever point of leadership we're involved, we have our flaws, we have our limitations. But please come alongside of these folks, because you have no idea how much they're getting beat up. Their best efforts are never going to be good enough for everybody in this room. And it's not because they're inferior, it's just because there's always going to be somebody to find something wrong with something somebody's doing. So please take the time to thank a teacher, thank a principal, thank the person that directed traffic out at the entrance of the school. Thank the ministers for coming together and trying to find a way to build a unity again that we need in our community. And if they don't respond right away, if they don't interact with you to the level of your expectation, send them some cookies or something. You know, make us smile. So we're happy to give people apples or something, you know, the teachers and all that. But realize that you're not the only issue you're dealing with. And it's not that your issues aren't important. But they're trying to cast the vision and run with it. And then put out a newsletter a couple weeks ago. You're writing down the vision so that we can run with it, so we can be inspired and feel good about what we're doing. So take the time to hear what you're saying. Hold it accountable, but hear what you're saying. And if you got a better idea about how to do something, not just to pick at it, find a way to make it meaningful so that Dr. Williams can then share with the board or individuals on the board can grab a hold of this or whatever else. And we're gonna make progress, but we gotta do it together. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Let me first say that I am really glad this conversation is happening. As Mrs. Sanders mentioned, when she used to come to the board meetings, there would be no one. Now we get about maybe 5 to 10 people. Someone said it should be more people here. Absolutely, there should be more people. We will do better with getting the information out. Reaching our constituents who do not have children in the district has been a conversation, so thank you for sharing that. I just wanted to say, I'm the board president, I'm not the superintendent. Mr. Cunningham is the superintendent, and he, it's definitely his place to address your concern. I want you all to know that as a board member, I'm listening. I'm listening to your comments. When I hear your comments, my mind starts going as far as what can we do better? What can we consider? What can we reconsider? And I want to say to our administration, hope you all are taking notes. I've written down the concerns. We need to address these concerns. They're legitimate concerns. And I like the fact that we have people in this room that are diverse in their reasoning and whatever. Everybody has their reasoning, their stance on taxes, on building a school. The board has its reasoning for what we do, administration as well. The bottom line is, like Mayor Farquhar said, we do need to come together. We do need to come together in conversations like this, where we're cohesively trying to do what's best for this district. Is it going to cost money to increase our district, our score, and our brand, or whatever was being portrayed on social media, or whatever? Is it going to cost money to make the high school better? Absolutely. And the bottom line is, that is what it is. There's no way around it. Last night we talked about the various ways that school districts are funded. We are lacking in school funding. We are lacking, we talked about taxes, our home rate going down. We're looking at issuing debt. We are really in a great place in education. I was just telling Mr. Brown, while costs are increasing, the money we're getting is steadily decreasing. The state is not doing its part. We mentioned last night, the state is prorating what they give us. Someone said earlier, where's the budget from the state? So basically what we're doing here is working with what we have. And what I like to say is the best we can do is what we do best. We need to take what we do best, spread wide and far. And so let's talk about the top down. Of course, that starts with the board, it's the administration, it's the principal, it's the teacher, it's the parents, all of us, community members, taxpayers, whoever it is. We all need to come together to figure out what's best for our children. And I will tell you, as long as I sit in the seat, I will do what's best for kids. I'm a taxpayer as well. I'm a parent. I have a kid in the high school. I share some of the same concerns. I get people texting me, videos, sending me different things going on in the high school. I make sure the administration knows about it. My child's there too. And we even have conversations with kids who say that they are not even having school spirit in the high school. But you want to know what the main reason was for that? It's because, like this young lady said, and what's being said on social media about their high school. And most of those children love being in that school. They just don't like the fact that their school is being portrayed in a certain way. And what I do, when I get information, I take it to whoever I need to take it to and get the facts. Let's get it straight. We're not always getting the facts. That's the first thing. We need to make sure what we're receiving is true. Sometimes it's not. I said Dr. Hartnell, last week someone sent me. He went through it. Half the kids on there weren't even from the high school. Somebody put a video together and said, this is Crete Monee High School. And some of those kids weren't even from our high school. We need to stop it. We need to stop it with the lies. We need to stop making up stuff. Our kids are watching us. They come home, they tell us, as parents of high school, I'm sure your kids are coming home saying what's going on. And another thing, these kids have more insight than we give them credit for. And if they're coming home saying something, we have to do our due diligence to look into it. But I just wanted to say, you know, a lot of these, so like I said, I've written them down. I'm going to share them with Mr. Cunningham and administration, because these are things that are going on in your mind. You're talking about them in your homes. You're talking about them with your children. It's affecting all of us. And the best way to deal with it is to deal with it straight ahead. I believe that if we can justify what we're doing here at Crete, now like I say, it's this couple, you were talking about comparing us to other districts. We are actually second to HF. If you compare us to Ritchie's, you compare us to Bloom, compare us to Kankakee, we're second to HF. So we're actually doing some awesome things. And I think that if we can continue to get that message out there, people understand exactly what we're doing in this district. People will understand, like some of these parents that are mind paying attacking. Basically, if I can see the fruit of the labor. And we have to do a better job at that. We talk about that, getting the good news out. But I just want to encourage everyone, we are hearing you, we are listening, and we will be addressing your issues. I will be talking with the superintendent. We'll be getting together some kind of way to address these issues and get them out, because we do need to do that. We're doing good. I will say that. I've been on this board, this is my 7th year. Trust me, we're doing a lot better than when I sat in the seat. But we can always do better. As the great man, Jim Collins, some of you know leadership theory, said you have to constantly be going from good to great. You can never settle and get comfortable. And trust me, with this board, I don't think any of these administrators are getting comfortable at all.
As we wrap up the public hearing, I'd just like to remind everybody that there will be another presentation. So if you could just hold tight with us for a few more minutes, I think you will benefit from that presentation as well. Well, yes, you have to, the board has to close the hearing, I believe.
Do a vote and come back.
Yes. Do you want the mic?
Yes. It worked pretty good, didn't it?
How's this for like that?
Can I have a motion to close the public hearing on the 2015 tax levy?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sanders, second by Mrs. Gasparo. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those
Aye.
opposed say nay. We have closed the hearing, and our next presentation.
You doing slides?
Yes.
Seriously.
Sorry, we're doing slides again.
Hey, you're getting good at it. Bye, Terry. See you again. He's doing slides. Oh. Just want to see how you guys.
Kill him dead, Doc.
Could you hear me? Can everyone hear me? Do I have to go like this when I talk? Good evening, everybody. My name is Rob Grossi. I'm the financial advisor to Crete Monee School District. I've been working with school districts for the past 30 years and currently serve as financial advisor or treasurer to about 40 school districts in Illinois. I think it's very ironic that we're going to be discussing this possible capital project and bond issue at the same time we just talked about the tax levy, because the issues at hand are so related. I had the opportunity to attend the community forum yesterday in Monee, and I've been here all day listening to the levy hearing. And I probably go to more school board meetings than any person in the state. I've been already 4 this week. And what I'm hearing in that these meetings are no different than what I'm hearing in other school districts in the south suburbs. The gentleman that was just here, that was sitting right there, was talking about this article about the downward spiral of taxes in south suburbs. It's a great article, and I suggest you read it. I've lived in the south suburbs for 52 years, and it is, and I remember, and for those of you who've been here for forever, you remember going to Lincoln Mall and going to Marshall Fields and Park Forest and having all that stuff, and our area is decimated. And it honestly almost makes you want to cry what's been happening to the south suburbs. Businesses are leaving, and when businesses leave, people have to pick up the slack in taxes, and as a result of that, taxes go up. So the people that are left, they have to pay more and more taxes. And it's a terrible system, and the system is created primarily because of the way schools are funded in Illinois. The genesis of all this is that. And I need to start with this because it's relevant going forward. But the difference between how much money Crete Monee and other south suburban school districts have to educate their students versus other areas in the state is criminal. Illinois by far has the most inequity in terms of that. And as a result, the south suburbs in particular, of any area in the whole state of Illinois, the south suburbs are most impacted. There's other property poor areas in Illinois, but they're downstate. They don't have to be up here competing against the Orland Parks of the world for teachers and things of that sort, and the cost of living is higher up here. So we're in a decimated situation, and something really needs to give. And from a perspective of a school board, because again, I get to see a lot of school boards, they take the brunt of a lot of this, and I'm sure at the village halls, the villages take the brunt of all this. But the reality is this: we're getting screwed, and it's really bad, and something has to happen. But in the meantime, there's a task at hand, and the task at hand is that we still have to provide quality education to the kids in this school district. We still have to make sure that we can pay a competitive salary to attract good quality teachers into the school. We still need to make sure that we have enough money in the bank so that we provide good programs to the kids and good support programs so these kids can get extra help that need the extra help and have after-school programs that are productive. These are all things that still have to happen. We could just sit back and say, and I've seen this in school districts, that says, our taxes are too high, it's the state's responsibility, we're getting screwed, we should be getting more money from the state, and they stop there, and they stick their head in the sand. And the end product is going to be that the schools are going to get worse and worse. And that's not good for the community either. So as I go through this presentation, know that there's no right or wrong answer, because I hate taxes, and I totally get the fact that Crete Monee and all the south suburbs is overtaxed. It's an unfortunate reality. So the first thing I want to do is I just want to talk to you about the impact of what's going on. The tax levy that was just presented, the CPI that's being used, the rate of inflation, which is the max, is 0.8%. For a $100,000 home, the average increase is going to be $15. This is the second lowest rate of inflation since tax caps started in the mid-1990s. Next year, so when the Board of Education approved their tax levy in December of 2016, for the taxes collected in 2017, that's projected to be 0.3 right now, which is the second lowest, which would even be lower than this. So that would mean that the tax bill of a $100,000 home would go up less than $10 for the year. And again, no tax increase is good, but I think that the perception, and I'll never read blogs because I think that if negativity's in a blog, I think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy in a community. But I don't know what the perception is as far as what the future of taxes are. People are paying too much taxes, but know that at least for the next 2 years, the taxes are going to increase for $100,000 home. If you have a bigger home, it's going to be more, between $10 and $15 over the next 2 years. And then if the governor does have a property tax freeze, which is maybe part of the compromised budget proposal, it seems to be more likely than not, but who knows what happens in Springfield, then you'll have 2 more years of zero growth. So know that in Crete Monee, you have to know this, and the blogs have to recognize this. People can't be scared. People could say that taxes are high now, but people cannot be scared, factually, that taxes are going to go up so significantly over the next couple of years because of Crete Monee that it's going to drive people out of the community. Number one is, outside of the bonds, which we'll talk about in a second, your taxes are going to increase less than 1%, at least for 2 more years. So the first time, even if the district wanted to, the first time your taxes will go up more than 1% will be in 2018. And again, if the governor freezes for the years that he's talking about, now it would be till 2020 that your taxes will be increased. So that's that. All the energy that's developed around that has to go away, as it relates to not the bonds. Now, the other part of the tax bill is the bonds. For about $40 million of the tax bill this district is non-bonds, about $10 million is bonds. That $10 million, as Dr. Williams mentioned, is scheduled to go up slightly. If the district restructures, as the gentleman in the back over there had said, the district, one of the things the district would do is they would level that off. Even if the district does issue the $33 million in bonds, no matter what the blogs say, you have to recognize that the taxes that are being paid right now on the district's bonds, which are about $10 million, at no time will they go above that. So the taxes are not going to increase above what you paid last year. What they're going to do is over the next 9 years, I'm jumping ahead, but it all relates, and people need to know this. Over the next 9 years, if the district issues $33 million in bonds for capital projects, and if they refinance, over the next 9 years, the bond taxes will be lower than what they were projected to be. In other words, they were projected to grow, they would level. Taxes will increase because there is going to be more debt in years 10 through years 20. Taxes will increase. And they'll increase, again, right now, they're going to increase to about 1/3 of what they are right now. So if they're $10 million now, they're going to drop to about $3 million for the next 10 years. That's the impact of what a $33 million bond issue would look like for the school district, especially if they get the federal subsidy and use that federal subsidy to provide the tax relief. So again, it's really important to know, because there's so much energy last night and there's so much energy today about what's going to happen in the future year taxes. If people are saying that taxes are going to grow over the next 9 years significantly and you better prepare, and it has to do with Crete Monee, it is absolutely false. And I'll put my 29 years of working with school finance and working with the State Board of Education and teaching school finance at Governor State University and Western Illinois University at stake to make that statement. No matter what the district wants to do, they're capped and the rate of inflation is as low as it's ever been. So from a tax perspective, you need to know that. Thank you. I don't know how to advance the slide. Oh, there. Okay, so what the board needs to consider tonight is this. Again, under a perfect scenario, we would like to say, here's the deal. The school needs work on their buildings. Whether they keep the buildings open, whether they close the buildings, there's work that needs to be done in the buildings. You know, what work needs to be done and how much work needs to be done, that's something that needs to be decided at a future date by the Board of Education. But some work needs to be done. And it would be great to say, the state's going to give us money to pay for that. Then that's a win-win. No one's here tonight, because it's not going to raise your taxes and your buildings are going to get fixed. But the reality is, the state, the inequity that's involved with that exists in the state is worse than it's ever been. The state has shortchanged this district over $8 million over the last 5 years, and they owe you guys $2 million in late bills for this year. So again, you have to provide quality education, you have to have quality buildings, quality facilities, quality staff, quality programs, despite what's going on, and that's unfortunate. But the reality is the district's going to have to make a decision. The district has, well, let me just go through this thing. So tonight, the board's being asked, the federal government has a program to incent school districts to borrow money for capital projects. And it's a $495 million program. And the program, basically, if a school district is approved, applies and is approved into this program, the federal government will pay for all the interest, essentially all the interest associated with the borrowing. So if the district borrowed $33 million over 20 years, and the cost of interest is estimated at around $22 million, the federal government over that 20-year period will give the school district $22 million. And it would be my recommendation that the school uses that $22 million to reduce taxes as it relates to the bonds. This program, which was just announced on November 20th, has a window of December, Illinois State Board of Education is managing it. They have a window from December 1st to January 15th. They gave us a 45-day window on this program. So what school districts are doing, and many school districts are doing this, there's $495 million. Schools are rushing to get applications in. And it's estimated right now that there's going to be about $1.5 billion of applications into the State Board of Education. So even if the board does approve this, there's no guarantee that they're going to get it. But if they don't request, if they don't apply, then for sure they don't get it. So the district has capital projects that need to be done. If they borrow the money, if they use borrowed funds to pay for it, and they borrow the money through this program, there will be approximately $20 million plus of federal money that will come into the school district.
So, just to clarify,
Mm-hmm.
the $22 million from the federal government is the federal government giving us money to pay the interest on the $33 million loan, right?
Yep, so it's exactly right.
So it's not extra money, they're paying our interest.
Correct. So what they're doing is under a normal borrowing, like when you borrow for your high school, when you borrow the money from the bank, the taxpayers are paying back the bank how much you borrowed plus interest. So under traditional borrowing, if you borrowed $33 million and the bank gave you $33 million over 20 years, presumably, you would pay them the $33 million back plus $22 million in interest from the taxpayers.
So instead, we would borrow $33 million and pay back $33 million.
Right, because
So we're on the hook for $33 million.
that's exactly right. You're going to be back for 33 instead of 55. It's still a tax increase. And again, the ideal scenario would be we could fix the buildings and it doesn't impact the taxpayers. So there's a plus and a minus, which I'll get into in a moment.
Has the district applied this year?
No, tonight, what the district is being asked to consider is to apply. To apply is not a binding thing. Basically, if you apply, is this what you want? No. Oh, but basically, if you apply, if a school district applies, ISB is expected to make a decision in February on whether you're accepted. If you get accepted, the school district has time to decide on what projects they would want to fund and whether they would even want to borrow the funds.
And who exactly applies for this?
The Board of Education tonight would have to approve the application. It's one of their agenda items.
But who personally sees this through for the accountability?
Well, once the Board of Education, if the Board of Education applies for this, then the application will be submitted to the State Board of Education. It would be by the district. It has to be signed by the board president. It has to be signed by the superintendent, and then the attorneys that oversee the bond issue. They have to sign it as well. And then I would send it, or the district would send it. Somebody would send it to the State Board of Ed, and it has to be received by January 15th. All right.
Can you let them know that they've been holding this money since 20?
Yeah, it's a good point. There was money allocated by the federal government to every state in the country. And every state, back in 2009, this was a 2009 stimulus program from the federal government. Every state has dispersed it, has forwarded it on to the schools to use, except Illinois, which is shocking. But so the city of Chicago got about $400 million, and the rest of the state has about $495 million.
So they've been collecting interest all this time.
Well, it's an obligation. I don't think they exactly gave them the money per se, but still, it's for no real reason, they held it, right. So, and some of this stuff we've talked about already. So the district would have to approve the application prior to January 15th. Since this is the last regular meeting prior to January 15th, this is why the board is being asked to consider approving it at this point in time. The recommendation is that the district utilize this qualified school construction program in order to address the district's major capital needs, and because the money that's borrowed has to be used for capital, and the future financial condition of the district, which I'll get into a second, in the most cost-effective manner to the taxpayers, which means to borrow the money, the best way to borrow it is at, the second best way to borrow it is at low interest, the best way to borrow it is no interest. So we all know, and it's been alluded to tonight, the challenges that Illinois is facing. Illinois is in terrible shape. If you don't know it, Illinois has the lowest financial rating of any state in the country, including California. There's a huge pension crisis, as you know. The makeup of Illinois is terrible for our future growth. All the states around us are growing faster than us. We have an aging population that's faster than any of those states, which means that there's going to be more people on Social Security and less people working to pay for that, and other state programs. The city of Chicago and Chicago Public Schools has a huge multi-million-dollar funding crisis that's going to take up state money, because I'm sure the state's going to bail that out. And there's billions of dollars of unpaid bills, including lottery holders, as you know. All these strains leave virtually everybody in the state, any politician that you talk to, any organization, nobody is saying things are going to turn around in 3 years, or things are going to turn around in 4 years, and things are going to turn around in 5 years. Nobody's optimistic that things are going to turn around. And this is probably the most important statement I could make tonight as it relates to that, is that almost everybody believes that the financial challenges that schools in Illinois will face, including Crete Monee, are going to be even though they've been bad over the next 4 years, are going to be the greatest challenges they faced in their history. And I'm not, and if you knew me, I'm not the boy that cried wolf kind of person. There's huge problems. So this district, this community, again, a school district is a perpetual entity. You need to make sure that this school is a quality school, not only for the kids now, but for their little brothers and sisters and other people that are going to move into the community. A lot of talk about people moving into the community, getting people to move into the community and everything like that. Besides negativity and blogs that could keep people away from a community, it's the reality of bad schools and bad facilities and bad programs and things of that sort. So you have to so whoever's on that school board, or whoever's the decision makers, or whoever's the administrators, you need to make sure that you have enough resources to navigate through this crisis and not be in a situation where you have to slash programs or slash staffing or make reductions that will impact student learning. The challenges of students and the global competition that they face to get jobs has never been greater. And if we take this, if we don't recognize that, and we don't we don't improve student learning during this crisis, we're not doing anybody a favor. So we could stick our heads in the sand and not do anything, but I can guarantee you, because I worked with the poorest school districts in the state, two of the handful of schools that have been taken over by the state for financial difficulties, I've been appointed to help turn them around and be on the state oversight committees of these two districts. You do not want to be a district like that. It is not a fun situation where the state just basically warehouses the kids. They don't care about the kids, and they make decisions for your kids because they have that authority, because your district hasn't managed this money properly. And there's going to be a lot of school districts that are going to have financial challenges, and those challenges are going to grow. You don't want to be in that situation. Some of the challenges that you guys are going to face include uncertain state funding. Again, we have no idea how much the state's going to give us every year. We never know. At the time Dr. Williams puts her budget together, we don't know how much money the state's going to give us. That's a terrible way to budget. The pension shift. The state of Illinois, the pension systems, as you probably have read, they're in the hole by billions of dollars. the state is likely going to shift because it's killing the state, they're going to shift it to the school districts. If they shift it to the school district, that's going to be hundreds of thousands of additional expenses in this school district that it's going to have to navigate and deal with. The third thing is low inflation, no new property. Again, while the low inflation is good for the taxpayers in terms of dollars into the school district, the biggest source of revenues, which is real estate taxes, are going to grow by less than 1% for the next several years in this district. That's another burden on the school district. And then major capital needs. This district does have buildings that need work. Again, what that is could be defined at a later time, but there's work that has to be done to Balmoral Elementary, Crete Elementary, and there's academic reasons why some of the other decisions are being considered. All of it leads to an uncertain future. So now the district has a decision. So here's the decision that this is all about. And again, there's no right or wrong answer. So the district has to address their capital projects. So they could do one of two things. They could borrow the money, which will result in taxes going up in years 10 through year 20, as we discussed. So the negative is that you're borrowing, that you're raising taxes, which is not a good, which in and of itself is never a good thing, but they're addressing their facilities. Or they could use fund balance reserves to address their facilities. Again, the positive of that is you don't have to raise taxes. But the negative of that is this, is that if you're using these fund balance reserves to to pay for these capital projects, then you have less fund balance reserves. If you don't have your acorns stored up, and it's going to be a long winter because there's going to be years and years of financial challenges, your district is going to become more vulnerable to the state's financial crisis. And again, you could close your eyes, one could close their eyes and say, we'll take care of that later, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. You don't want to get to that point. You don't want to get to the point where you open up your eyes and all of a sudden you got to cut your staff by 10%, or you have to cut programs that you know help the kids because you haven't been prepared for it. Everything that we talk, all the questions and all the issues about the budget are preparing in advance. If you don't have the fund balance reserves, and I work with the districts that only have 1 or 2 months worth of fund balance reserves, their board meetings are brutal. I mean, these board meetings, there's a lot of emotion around the taxes and other things like that. Their board meetings are talking about things that are taking away stuff from the kids. You don't want to get in that situation. And my belief is that if you use the fund balance reserves for capital projects, there's 100% that you're raising the probability. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you're raising the probability that your district is going to have to take action that will adversely impact student learning during this state crisis. And while taxes are not good for a community and a stability of a community, I would contest and argue that poor school districts or newspaper articles about the school district cutting programs and the school district cutting staff isn't good for the community either. So it's a fine balancing. There's no right answer. If the Board of Education decides that they're going to use fund balances to pay for these capital projects, hooray for the taxpayers. That's a great thing in the short term. And it could be positive to some people. But at the same time, if the board makes a decision to borrow money to do it, I don't think in and of itself it's something that should be highly criticized because not only are they addressing their facilities, which need to be addressed at some level, but they're increasing the probability of fiscal stability. And fiscal stability is relevant as well. So again, you could debate both sides, but both sides need to recognize that there is both sides. There is a need to preserve fund balances, and there is a need to keep taxes low. And if you recognize that and in a harmonious way figure out the best middle ground, that's probably the best case scenario for the district. So the specifics of the recommendations are about $33 million, and it doesn't have to be that number, about $33 million in order to pay for major capital projects over the next 3 years. Once you borrow the money has to be spent within 3 years. Whatever you don't spend, you just give back to the taxpayers. Possible projects, and I emphasize the word possible because at tonight's meeting, the decision's not being made on how to spend the money, what specific projects. But possible projects include the addition to the middle school. Rather than using fund balance reserves to pay for the middle school, consider using borrowed money to pay for the middle school so that you could preserve fund balances. Maintenance projects, including but not limited to safety work, life safety work. Again, if the decision by the Board of Education is to keep Balmoral Elementary and Monee open, there's a lot of work that has to be done in those school districts. What specifically the Board of Education would want to define, that's part of their facilities master plan, and that's something that the board will have to discuss at the beginning of 2016. But these are some things that, do we want to address those with cash reserves, or do we want to address those with borrowed funds? And then renovations, additions, and technology upgrades at the elementary and secondary levels. Myself and the superintendent and the business manager, we met with every mayor in this school district to talk about their schools, to talk about this project, to try to alleviate some of the misconceptions around this thing. And, you know, again, the intention right now is to address all the facilities of every school district, from Park Forest to University Park, Crete, Monee, all these areas, address their facilities. Put the facilities in a place where you can have internet access throughout the buildings effectively. You could, you know, you could fix the roofs. You could do whatever needs to be done. If the board wants to go to air conditioning, that type of thing. I'm just throwing out hypothetical things without air, but to consider addressing the facilities for the next generation with borrowed funds rather than fund balance reserves. Because at some point in time, a lot of those projects will have to be addressed, whether you address them this year or next year or 3 years from now. And then with the $22 million, because a school can have the ability to use that money for whatever they want to, my recommendation would be to use that to pay for the interest costs, so you don't have to pass on the interest costs to the taxpayers if you get into the program. Benefits to the stakeholders in the district, improvements to the buildings. There will be improvements to the buildings in order to expand 21st century learning skills into the curriculum at all grade levels. It would address, one of the advantages of doing this is that if you address these capital projects with the borrowed funds, then when Dr. Williams is putting together future budgets, you don't have to budget for capital projects. And if you don't budget for capital projects, that's a better chance that you could have a balanced budget or a surplus, or consider things at board meetings like, do we want to expand, I'm making up a thing, do we want to expand our after-school program? Do we want to do this? It would give you more ability to do that because you're not allocating a part of your budget for capital projects. And then the $22 million we talked about. So Elizabeth Hennessy is going to talk a little bit about how this is projected to impact the taxpayers from the bond side of the tax levy. Do you want this, or you can?
Thanks, Rob. I'm Elizabeth Hennessy. I'm the school district's bond underwriter, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the impact of the financing plan. So let's look at the top graph. The red line is your debt service payments. Here in 2015, you just went through the levy hearing, and you saw the debt payment in 2015 is $9,925,000. Over the next 6 years or so, or more than that, the next 9 years, the payments on your bonds are increasing. This is your existing bonds that were issued for the payment of this high school in 04, 05, and 07. So that in 2023 levy year, you're going to be paying almost $15.2 million. That's a 6% increase every year. So this structure was put in place many, many years ago when the district was growing. Obviously, it's not growing, it has not been growing. So that's the challenge of your current debt. After 2024, the bonds are paid off, and we see it goes down to zero in 2025. If you were to proceed with the $33 million and you were allocated qualified school construction bond authority, what we could do with the issuance of that is restructure a part of that existing debt, that red line that goes up to $15.2 million. We would flatten it right at $12 million. Again, through 2024, then taxes drop down to $4 million a year between year 2026 and 2034. So though
that's where you would repay the 33 million, okay? So we're putting the repayment of that bond out from 2026 to 2034 after you finish repaying the existing debt and in the process flattening those payments, okay? So that would stabilize the tax rate and the tax payment. So that's the proposed plan. Again, these bonds are nearly interest-free. You would be paying back just the principal and restructuring the existing bonds to flatten your payment. So going back to Dr. Grossi's statement that the operating funds of the district are going to increase by very little in our CPI environment, maybe 0% over the next 2 years if Senate Bill 318 goes through and increases property taxes. And so that would take you all the way to 2019, 2020 on your operating, the biggest part of your levy, at very little increase. If you restructure the bonds, you could flatten your debt payments at $12 million for the next 10 years. And if you issued this $33 million, you could address your buildings, and you would still have a decline, not to zero, like the red line goes down to zero, but in 2026 it would go down from 12 million to 4 million for the last 10 years. Okay, so let's look at what that means for a property owner. Whoops.
Let me do that.
Sorry.
Elizabeth, can you expound on the $15 million of work you had in the Historic Society not to issue a couple years ago?
Sure. Thank you, Mr.
There's
Brown.
an unopened water bottle up there. I wonder. Oh, yeah. I'm dying. I think I can talk.
Right. The district had authorized up to 15 million of bonds for working cash several years ago, it was 3 years ago, and intended to issue bonds for capital projects, but was continuing to develop its master facility plan. It decided ultimately to abandon that authority and wait till the full master facility plan was developed and board consensus. So that's why you see the taxes drop down here in 2015, because your bonds are, the old bonds are expiring and those new bonds were never issued. The other thing to mention is bonds would have been at a higher rate had we issued them 3 years ago than they would be today, especially in light of the ability to get this qualified school construction bond off the board, which is essentially interest-free bonds. So this graph looks at the impact on a $150,000 home. So right now, just for the debt portion of the tax levy in 2015, homeowners will be paying $797 for debt. And as you can see in the red line, those payments will climb essentially 6% a year up to $1,226 in levy year 2023 paid in 2024. If we are moving ahead with the plan to restructure the debt and issue the $33 million, we can flatten that payment to $962 a year for the next 10 years, and then it will drop down to just over $200 a year for those last 10 years. That coordinates with that $4 million payment.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes.
Can you specify what that difference is? I don't remember like that.
Sure. The total levy was
So what is the total levy, bond and non-bond? 40 million,
40 million.
approximately.
So only 10 million is
20%, if you're asking 20% of the tax bill is bonds, approximately.
So 80% is the non-bond?
Correct.
right. The
28% that we were talking about earlier, that applies to 15%?
Yes.
So this 20% that you're talking about.
Right. And just so you know, the bond levy is determined by bonds approved by the board and passed. Those levies go on for the length of the debt, and it's not controlled by
by taxpayers. That's why you see the increases on the top line of the existing debt payments. Okay. So the recommended board action is to approve a resolution to authorize the application for qualified school construction bond programs tonight. That's on the agenda. That doesn't guarantee the district will get it, but gives you a chance to get it. And again, for a $33 million bond issue, that results in $22 million plus of interest payments that would be paid by the federal government, not by the taxpayers. Number two, approve a resolution to authorize the reimbursement of current capital project expenses with future bond proceeds. This relates to the $15.5 million or so to pay for costs associated with the middle school that the district's currently using fund balance to pay for that middle school addition. So if you were to authorize a reimbursement resolution, and you were to go ahead and issue $15.5 million of bonds, you could pay yourself back the $15 million you're spending on that middle school addition and stabilize the fund balances for the future. Approve a resolution of intent to issue up to $15.5 million of bonds to pay for the costs associated with that middle school addition. This is stage one of the financing plan. Stage two will generate the remaining bond proceeds, $17.5 million or so, or whatever the board determines that amount to be, to accomplish the district-wide improvements, including life safety, technology, other improvements required. And then last, district administration collaborates with the architect to determine potential projects in the actual amount. So again, we're suggesting that at least the middle school project be bonded for with a resolution of intent to issue bonds for that, to pay yourself back, to stabilize the fund balances of the district as you move towards these challenges. Okay.
There's one more slide for January.
Thank you. Okay, so the proposed timeline is to, in this January, prioritize the capital projects identified in the qualified school construction bond application, hold a public hearing on the issuance of that stage one bond at $15.5 million. Then, after the approval of qualified school construction bond authority from ISB, you would sell the first bond issue. Then you would approve the resolutions of intent to issue the remaining bonds, stage two. Hold a public hearing concerning the issuance of stage two bonds, sell stage two bonds, along with restructuring bonds, and that's it. It'll probably take about 4 or 5 months together. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. You said that you have to apply for this bond for January 15th.
Correct.
If you apply, if you do get the bond, it's just we're stuck with this loan, which it is a loan, and the taxpayers don't get to vote on this at all. We're not applying for a bond. You got the bond.
It's authority. You don't get the bond, you actually get the authority to issue the bond. That's a subsequent decision of the board.
But does anybody get to vote on this? Because you're going to be using this for
Right.
people don't get to vote on this.
They're not life safety bonds.
These are not life safety bonds, firstly, but you're right, people don't get to vote on these bonds, but there are processes set forth through the statute for the public to express their opinions on this through public hearings and petition periods.
But you're stuck with it. Once they apply for it and you get it, the taxpayers have a choice.
No, that's not true. The district, if they decide to go ahead and use the authority, the taxpayers have the ability to speak at public hearings and put forth a petition through the petition process.
And then they can vote for it or against it.
They can ask that the district bring it to referendum through a petition process.
tell them on that.
Right, now there's several petition periods in this process. So, the range of the percent of the registered voters that would need to sign a valid petition is 7.5% for the bonds that would go to reimburse the middle school, and 10% for the stage 2 bond. 10% of the registered voters.
Please let them know that we have approximately 22,000.
Thanks, 22,000 registered voters in the district.
10% of that.
Right.
Right, and just to go forward with that process, so let's say it went to that event, that it would go to the next referendum, and then if the referendum failed, if the referendum passed, the district would issue would issue bonds. If the referendum failed, district would be forced to use their fund balances to pay for the capital projects. Mm-hmm.
So I was reading one of the QSB or QSCB document requirements, and one of the items listed was proof of a approved referendum. How does that work in the time frame, the very limited time frame that was given us to work with?
I believe there's 3 school districts in the state of Illinois who have approved referendum at the time of this issuance, and part of that was created for them. I know West Aurora is one of the districts. I'm not sure who the other 2 districts are. Yeah, that's if it went via referendum with the timing and everything like that, I don't think the district would be able to qualify for this program.
So how are we?
No. It's referendum or.
It's referendum or. Yeah.
Authorize other form of online financing, which is what we're talking about here with these petition periods and public hearings. These are the other types of bonds that you can issue. So it's one or the other.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Sorry, misunderstood.
I'm sorry, but I'm reading this, and it says the application must include the following documents: A, B, C, D, E, and D is a copy of the certification that the district has successfully passed a referendum, if necessary. Is it that if necessary, is the loophole?
Yes, it is, because the application, which is a 1-page application, has one box that says the district has approved for referendum, or 2, the district is not going through referendum for the bond issue, and then again, bond counsel on line 10 of the application has to certify that the district has the borrowing authority. Crete Monee is one of the only school districts in Illinois that has no non-referendum debt, actually. All your debt is referendum right now. But it's an either or, and I would venture to say that probably 98% of the applications that ISB is going to receive are going to be non-referendum bonds.
So to her point, at some point in the future, we do have the opportunity to change our mind. Is that?
Yeah, if all that's being asked for tonight is for to determine if in fact the district, if they borrowed, that they could have that authority. What ISB says is that if we grant you the authority and you decide during the 18 months that you don't want to borrow money, then you just give us the authority back and we'll give it to another school district. So the action tonight, again, just for proper information, the action tonight, there is nothing binding. It doesn't bind the specific projects that need to be that would be paid for with the financing, and it doesn't bind the district to borrow money. There's several different steps that the board will have to approve if they decide to borrow, if they elect to borrow money going forward, and then they'll have that they'll have that tough decision of which way to go. But tonight the main purpose of tonight, and the reason why it's been pushed up to tonight, is that ISB has the window again December 1st to January 15th. Tonight is to just apply to see if in fact we do borrow, because that is going to be something that has to be at least considered, whether they want to go that way or not. Can we borrow virtually interest-free? That's what tonight's action's about. It is not a binding in and of itself at any level. There's several other steps that have to happen. Right, they're not authorizing a bond issue. They're they're approving an intent that they want to consider issuing bonds, and they're applying to the state to say, if we borrow, can we get into this qualified school construction bond program?
So could you go back one slide real quick?
Mhm.
I want to make sure I understand this. So for December,
Mhm.
your third one there, it would be to say, yes, we're going to, in other words, we're going to borrow $15.5 million.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Right? So essentially, I mean, I know I'm using the word borrow and it's a bond and all that, but we're asking for approval to borrow $15.5 million. Then the next slide, fingers crossed, we qualify to get the QSC bond.
Mhm.
We pay back the 15.5
No.
with that 33
No.
million, or now have we borrowed 15.5 and 30?
So what this action tonight is notice of intent. So basically the board will be voting on whether they want to intend on starting the borrowing process. They will not get the money. This is just that they intend. So the next meeting is that they're required to have a public hearing. Now that they've expressed an intent to borrow, there'll be a public hearing. That would be at the next meeting. And then they have to have the public hearing. They can't sell the bonds before the public hearing. Then after they have the public hearing, if they want to continue to proceed, then at some point in time they have to pass another resolution. That third action is when they actually sell the money, get the money to the bank gives the money to the district, and the district extends the tax levy that would kick in 2027 or whatever. So
If we want to say we want to borrow 15.5, but why would we ask for 33?
because the only stage we're addressing now is the middle school. So that same process of 3 meetings would again. So in other words, let's just say hypothetically that the district. There's many different options that the Board of Education could consider, but there's a stage 1 borrowing that the board's going to take a separate consideration of. They want to, so their question is, okay, we got this project. It's going to cost about $15.5 million. Do we want to use fund balances or do we want to borrow? So they're starting today and they're saying our intent is to borrow, our intent, and they have to go through 3 processes. Now, the next stage would be, okay, we have other capital projects in the district. We have to fix Crete Elementary, we have to fix Balmoral Elementary if we're going to keep those buildings open. We want to fix the dome, whatever. There's things we want to do. I'm just throwing things out there. Then it's a separate thing. Then they would have to do an intent. We intend on borrowing money to do these things, have a public hearing, and pass a resolution to do the borrowing. That third resolution is the only time the district borrows money. So it's very important to recognize that whatever would be portrayed about tonight's meeting, if the board does go ahead, it is not authorizing a borrowing. The action tonight has no impact on the taxpayers. The earliest the district would be able to borrow, if they, first of all, at best, at the end of February, the Illinois State Board of Education is going to give the blessings for the school district to get this. And then there's still a process that have to go. So it's very likely that the first borrowing, if it did happen, even at the fastest pace, would not be until March. 30 days.
I'm somewhat not confused, but, when we talk about interest-free money coming from the federal government got that money from us to begin with. That's kind of a shell game.
Yeah, but it's...
that $22 million is money that we gave the federal government. They print money, I know that, but that comes from our taxes.
Right.
So, when you say it's interest-free, that's kind of an illusion, right?
But I mean, but it
Still paying for that.
But it is an opportunity to get that money back.
I understand.
But I hear what you're saying as well.
We already paid for it.
Right.
That's our money as taxpayers.
I hear what you're saying.
That ain't no kidding.
Right. But again, I just want to make this statement because as I'm getting older, I'm less and less politically correct. Is that recognize, and I totally respect the process, but recognize that if the decision of the community is to get a petition together and block the sale of the bonds, which they have a right to do, and I respect that. I told you my thoughts about taxes. I hate taxes, so I respect that. But they have to recognize that there is a consequence to that. And the consequence is that fund balances will be used for capital projects, whatever those capital projects are, and the district's fund balances will be down, and if the state continues to take money away from the district, things are going to have to happen in this district in terms of programs and staffing. The probability of is going to happen, that there's going to be a long-term impact on the quality of education in this district. It does not go without consequence. And the consequence, I'm not saying that it will happen, the district will be forced to cut. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the probability of that happen, let's just use that $15.5 million example. If you take $15.5 million out of your fund balances, you're cutting your fund balances in half. I could tell you that very few people that deal with school finance would say that the district's financial condition is steady at that point in time. Your financial condition will have eroded significantly if you have $15.5 million less in the bank. And again, I'm all in favor. Budgets need to be fine-tuned as much as possible, and you have to run as efficient as possible. But there's a point in time when the budget can get cut, and then the budget has to get to a point where the cuts are impacting kids. And that, I don't believe that everyone, I don't believe that anybody wants that, whether your kids go to school here or not. But you have to think long-term about your actions. And you have to know that if the district uses fund balances for this, the probability is going to be higher that the kids in this school district are going to be impacted, whether it's reduction in things that they're provided. And again, I saw it in so many school districts where they've cut band, where they've consolidated, Bloom High School, Bloom and Bloom Trail, consolidated into one program of sports. And their band had to wear jeans. They cut out the uniforms and cut out teams. Things like that happen, and I know that firsthand because I go to those school districts. And these are the school districts that didn't think long-term, and they didn't have fund balances reserves, and they didn't survive these last 4 years. So while this district has lost $8 million over the last 4 years from the state, they had fund balance reserves to deal with that. But I'm telling you, there's a lot of districts that didn't have that luxury. And as a result of that, they're cutting things, and they can't do, there's things that they want to do to help their kids, and they can't because they don't have the money. And I believe, honestly, that over the next 5 years, the challenges are going to even be worse. So the districts, again, the districts that don't prepare and aren't thinking long-term, they're going to be harmed by this. And again, I'm getting older, but I'm passionate about the south suburbs. I'm passionate about the kids. I'm passionate about the taxes. I swear to God, I get them. I hate taxes. But you have to recognize that there's potentially a consequence to the action that might be considered here. Yes.
So the district approves the resolution to issue up to $15.5 million in bond initially.
Mm-hmm.
The plan is to increase that from $15.5 to $33 million to cover the capital improvement projects.
Right.
Now, if we apply for this program and Chicago once again takes everything.
Well, they got their own allocation of about $400 million, but someone else does, I said. Yeah.
Gets the money.
And that may happen.
And we get none of that. Is the board still going to be going with the sale of those bonds?
Well,
We not get
that's a great question. Probably, presumably according to the state board, we'll know by the end of February whether the district was granted this approval. Whether the district gets granted the approval or not, they have a decision to make. Certainly the decision would be easier if it's interest-free money. But they still have a decision. And again, it's a harder decision, but they still have a decision because they still are facing the situation of, do we want to use the $15.5 million of fund balances, or do we want to borrow from it? If you have to borrow from it, there's going to be an interest associated with it. So it will cost more to do it, but it's still a tough decision. But nothing tonight. I've been to several meetings. That's something that has to be discussed, obviously, if you cross that bridge, but there's no plan at this point in time either way. There hasn't been any discussion about what do we do if we don't, if we go forward and we don't get it, what do we do? But that's a great, that's going to be a real tough conversation if that happens. Good question. Yes?
So you mentioned one of the previous slides was with the flat line that took into account some what would you say, restructuring of the current loan.
Right.
So how does that work? Does that mean if we have the 15.5 million, does that mean that we really only get 10 of that and 5 of it goes to the restructure?
No, all it is that increase that's, you see how the red bar, how it's increasing? They would pull that increase away and they would push it. That's part of part of those bonds that are out there at the end, you know, in years 2026 to 2034. Part of those increases are those bonds pushed back there. So
Yeah, I understand they're not pushed all the way back there. They're just pushed from the peak into like 27, 28, 29. That's a separate decision from.
And that's not a necessary part of it, but that's all. It's kind of been a stated objective is at the time of the borrowing, let's make sure. And it's that we have the slide. Recognize that is there a tax increase to borrowing? Absolutely. But recognize the green starting in 26 is the tax increase. So the tax increase is rather than being debt free, again from a $100,000 homeowner, rather than being debt free, $150,000, excuse me, starting in 2026, instead of being debt free for the next 8 years, the $150,000 homeowner is going to pay between $200 and like $350 over that time period. That's the tax increase we're talking about. And it's again, no tax increase is good, but it's not a tax increase to say that your tax bill is going to go from $900 now and it's going to double next year. It's that instead of it being projected to be zero, it's going to be between you could see the number between $200 and $350 over that next 8 or 9 years. It would be great to be debt free. Don't get me wrong, but it's not that your tax bills are going to skyrocket next year or something like that. And in fact, if there's a restructuring over the next 9 years, your taxes are going to be lower than they would have been if they didn't restructure.
Do you know when the current debt started?
2004, I believe. Right, 4?
So 10 years ago. So 10 years from now, what happens if something we need to add more new debt? Does that change the scope?
If it so
the master plan that we're waiting for?
Well, I mean, so the Board of Education, my guess would be is that the Board of Education that's sitting here in Mr. Trey's gonna be a little bit older and it's gonna be 2024. He's gonna be sitting there and he's gonna have to make, they're gonna have to make decisions about what they want to do at that point in time. My guess would be at that point in time, depending on what the state does, depending on the condition, this is every school district. They're gonna have to make a decision at some point in time what they want to do going forward.
If you look at the red graph up top, you had mentioned earlier that the bonds that were sold were non-callable bonds. So that's what appreciation bonds over the next several years. So if you look at the green, we are actually paying a bond holder what's that up top in the red. Just can't see it. Correct that statement.
That's correct. The escrow's paying it, the district's paying the green line. So the money that you get from the restructuring bonds pays the red line, the district pays the green line.
Bonds that we sold years ago were non-callable bonds.
Non-callable, right.
Which, it kind of turned me the wrong way, and I'm not one of the old board members who did what they had to do back then. But when I looked at these bonds and said, good opportunity to try to refinance these bonds, they were not callable. So this is the best thing that we can do other than refinancing, which we're doing what we call restructuring.
Yes.
I'm going to ask if there are any last questions. We would usually start at that last part of our board meeting. Thanks very much.
Yes.
One last question. If the board does apply for the program and is accepted and does get the $22 million, is the board obligated at that time to use that $22 million to pay the bond interest? Or can they take that $22 million and say, you know what, instead of that, we're going to do this with the $22 million?
Another good question. At the time of the borrowing, the district would, at the same time, establish their tax levy. And at that time, presumably, at that time, they would say, we're going to set this tax levy going forward to not include interest. So at the time, they'll set the levy for the next 20 years on the bond issue. Thank you. Thank you, please. Thank you.
Now I get to see you.
Oh, thank you. I like you yesterday.
Oh, you think so?
You're good. I don't know.
Only thing I think of what I might have said was nothing.
You'll be hearing it for days, Mike.
Thank you.
Financial advisor. Thank you. I don't know. Just hold me.
I don't want to turn this on. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Okay. Okay, good job, guys. Want a little bottle of water to travel with? You okay? Okay. You want to take that?
That are here, probably. Okay, I'm not here the whole time. I was down there thinking, we'll have cookies.
Please bear with us for a moment. Thank you. All righty. Seeing that it is 9:30 and we are now starting our very long agenda. What some people don't know is we stay here very late some evenings. I think the latest I've been here is 2 a.m. and had to go to work the next day. So the life of being a board member. And actually, we do have a vacancy in District 7. We have until tomorrow to put in your application if you'd like to join us. Oh, where did,
AM.
The latest we've ever been here is 3 a.m.
Oh,
Is it
3 a.m. Terry.
See, I was
we stand
delusional.
corrected. 3 a.m.
3:10.
Yes.
Okay, may I have a motion to table items number 9, administrative updates, and item number, I'm sorry, I did use the wrong word, sorry. A motion to postpone items number 9, which is administrative updates, and 10, board updates until the January regular board meeting.
So move.
Moved by Mr. Brown.
Second.
Second by everyone? No, second by Mrs. Sanders. Secretary, please call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith.
Aye.
Mrs. Gasparo.
Aye.
And Mr. Toure.
Yes, indeed.
And
He
Secretary.
personally thanked me.
Secretary is aye, and Dr. Hall.
Aye, thank you. Okay, board members, it is up to us how long this meeting will go. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with,
So moved.
okay, sorry, Mr. Cunningham is going to read them.
Second.
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
I did.
Mr. Toure, second by Mrs. Sanders.
Consent agenda approval, superintendent special meeting minutes from November 12, 2015, regular meeting minutes for November 17, 2015, regular meeting minutes, closed session minutes for November 17, 2015, education committee meeting minutes of December 2nd, 2015, finance committee meeting minutes of December 2nd, 2015, board policy committee meeting minutes for December 17, 2015, personnel committee meeting minutes of December 8th, 2015, personnel closed session meeting minutes of December 8th, 2015, approved board policy second read, approved board policy 460 operational services, purchases and contracts, and board policies press plus issues 90 first read. For business, approve accounts payable, agenda of bills. 2, approve payroll. 3, Heart That Smiles Mover Dentist, approve of agreement. C for curriculum. 1, CMS show choir competition. 2, CMHS wrestling tournament. And donations.
Call the roll.
Thank you. Any questions? Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Toure.
Aye.
Mrs. Gasparo.
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith.
Aye.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Secretary's aye, and Dr. Hall.
Aye. Okay, I will quickly acknowledge our donations. Principal Perkins would like to thank Mr. Martin, Roosevelt Martin, for participating in Mix It Up. She's also thanking Mr. Martin. Okay, that's the same one. That's the second one. That's the same one. It's in there twice, looks like. She's thanking Marcus Theaters for donation of movie passes. She's thanking Mr. Smith for participating in Mix It Up, Stevie Smith. Erin Lane, Principal Crete Monee, is thanking the Beecher AMVETS for participating in Veterans Day. She's thanking Vincent Anayaso for his participation in Veterans Day. She's thanking Waltz Food Centers of South Holland for their $25 gift certificates. She's thanking Spooley's Health and Fitness for their 3 one-month memberships, 10 class punch cards, and 7-day trial passes. She's thanking Ultimate Flavors Popcorn Shop for their gift cards. She's thanking Elizabeth Stanula from Holland Company for a holiday visit by Santa and Mrs. Claus. Principal Daly is thanking Miss Agler for a gift card. She's also thanking Miss Jessica Johnson for pastries and cakes. She's thanking Miss Burnett for pastries and cakes. Ryan Purdy, donation of popcorn. Okay, great. I'm trying to get back to the agenda. Where'd you go? Okay. Now we have our action reports, starting with business. Have quite a few action reports, so Dr. Williams.
Yes, included in your packet is a recommendation to adopt the 2015 tax levy as discussed during the public hearing. As required by law, a public notice was issued in the Daily Southtown Star, and a public hearing was held just prior to the board meeting this evening. The expected extension is approximately $36.9 million for capped funds, and that is an increase of less than 1% over the prior year. This concludes my report, and I'd be happy to address any questions of the board at this time.
May I have a motion to approve the 2015 tax levy and related documents?
So move.
Moved by Mr. Brown. Second by Mrs. Gasparo. Any questions? Okay, Secretary, please call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith? Aye. Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
Mr. Toure?
Aye. Aye.
And the Secretary's aye. Dr. Hall?
Aye, thank you. Motion passes. Authorization to reduce final 2015 tax levy.
Yes, also included in your packet is a recommendation to adopt a resolution directing the Will County Clerk on how to reduce the tax levy should it need to be reduced through tax caps. As we discussed during the public hearing, we estimate more than we will receive due to the unknown factors, and we have requested more in the transportation fund, and that amount will be reduced per the resolution if approved. This concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to address any questions from the board at this time.
May I have a motion to approve the authorization to reduce the final 2015 tax levy?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Toure. Second by Mrs. Galbraith. Any questions? Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Galbraith? Aye. Ms. Gasparo?
Aye.
And Mr. Toure?
Aye.
Secretary's aye. And Dr. Hall?
Aye. Maximum Staffing Solutions.
Included in the board packet is a recommendation to approve a contract for Maximum Staffing Solutions. This contract has been reviewed by the Finance Committee as well as the board's attorney, and it is our recommendation that the contract be approved at this time.
May I have a motion to approve the Maximum Staffing Solutions School Nurse Staffing Approval Agreement?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Toure.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Gasparo. Any questions?
Did we get a certificate of insurance from them?
Mrs. Bellotti.
Certificate of insurance.
The district get a certificate of insurance as us being the additional holder. Is it included with this package?
But we've received it. It may not be in the packet. Okay.
Yes, and if, I thought that I had sent it in the packet, and if it's not here,
It may.
I'd like to send it.
Okay, I might have overlooked it. I don't see it. I don't see it.
At the very end of the contract, you know,
I'm looking. Yeah.
Page 351.
Is it?
Page
Did I miss it?
351.
351.
Find it?
Okay, no, so it's not attached. I didn't think I saw it. No.
Is it in here?
No, sir.
When can we expect that?
I'll go to them. I'm sure it's in my packet. I'll get that out to you.
Okay.
Okay, this is a process that we really need to tighten up on. Okay. It's kind of dear to me.
Yes, sir. We need to make sure we have certificate of insurance. It's not the first time you asked this of us. We'll make sure we have it.
Thank you.
So if we approve this, could it be pending the inclusion of that, or should the motion read as such? Do you need to see it? Does it change?
I need to have some assurance other than
Well, she
a
said she
verbal.
has it. It just
Yeah.
wasn't included. So the question is not whether they have, you know for a fact that they have it. And so. Okay.
Because that was something for you to do in a meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
So we just don't have it present.
Right.
Do you need an addendum to Jim? You good?
Just send out in your FYI that you saw it, you have it in your hands, you got it secured, and put it in your FYI. Okay.
Thank you.
Next on staffing. Okay.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Toure?
Aye.
Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Secretary's aye, and Dr. Hall?
Aye. Thank you. Approval of interfund transfers.
Of who?
Interfund transfers.
No. Included in your packet is a recommendation to authorize interfund transfers. 2 resolutions are also included. At various times throughout the school year, the school district's revenues may not exceed the monthly expenditures, and that is anticipated to happen during the month of January, and we do have a bond payment required for the month of January. So we are requesting authorization to perform an interfund transfer of $1 million, of $4 million from the Operations and Maintenance Fund to the Capital Project Fund, and $1 million from the Education Fund to the Bond and Interest Fund, as indicated in the attached documents.
May I have a motion to approve the interfund transfers?
So move.
Moved by Mr. Brown,
Second.
second by Mrs. Gasparo. Any questions?
When do we anticipate getting the money so we can put it back in there?
We anticipate reimbursing those before the year end.
Okay.
Is this with the next property tax payment?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So
The
that's the
funds-
understanding, because we get into a shift because what we need to pay doesn't necessarily align. with what we get in the
Exactly. The bond schedule doesn't align to the receipt of our tax payments.
That's what I'm looking to be a problem. And when we levy separately for our debt, and we get those monies to pay our debt, why is it not lining up? What's going on with that?
Well, the levy, all of the levy money comes in together. It's not separated between cap funds and the debt levy. But the schedule for when we receive our tax payment is not aligned to our debt schedule. We only pay our bonds twice a year.
Right.
And this has always been the case?
Yes.
Correct. The difference is now it's being brought to the board and before it was not.
Let's talk about this in our next finance.
Well, certainly.
Get a little bit more detail on this, more information. Whatever ways we can improve this, if we could. The process.
We changed.
Not so
We
much
changed the
money.
process, ma'am. Originally, this was not brought to the Board of Education. We brought it to the Board of Education because we want you to be aware of where the funds are going and how they're going. We want it to be transparent.
Okay.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith?
Aye.
Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
Mr. Teray?
Aye.
And Secretary's aye. Dr. Hall?
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Recommendation to adopt a resolution authorizing a qualified construction bonds application.
You skipped one.
Did I skip one? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, gosh. Approve the fiscal year 15 independent audit. Oh, we need to vote on that.
Yes, included in your packet is a draft of the audit documents along with an executive summary. The audit firm formerly known as McGladrey is now known as RSM, and they have completed the audit for the 2014-15 year. That information was presented to the Finance Committee in their December meeting. Our total revenue for the year, our revenue for the year totaled $71.2 million. Our expenditures for the year totaled $73 million. And that left the district with a deficit of $2.2 million, which is a 55% decrease of the deficit over the prior year. That is a marked improvement resulting largely from increased managerial oversight for purchases and reduced payroll expenses. The district's financial profile designation is unchanged with this audit, but it is worth noting that our expenses to revenue ratio has improved. Has improved. Last year, we were roughly spending $1.06 for every dollar we received. 2 years ago, we were spending $1.06 for every dollar received, and last year, we spent $1.01 for every dollar received. So we are closing that gap, and it is due to the decisions of the Board of Education and the due diligence of the administrative team. So thank you to you all, and I'd be happy to address any questions from the board at this time.
May I have a motion to approve the fiscal year 15 independent audit?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Teray,
Second.
second by Mrs. Galbraith. Any questions?
What's the legal ramifications for not approving this audit tonight? Is there any binding legal ramifications?
That is a good question. I don't know that I know the answer to that, but I do know that as a district, we post our audit online on our website every year.
Okay.
I've never had that question. I don't know.
I think it may be a mere formality to approve the audit.
It just may be what?
Just a mere formality to approve it.
Speaking as a professional in the business, I think it is just a technicality.
You have any qualms with it? You good? You good with it?
Secretary, please call the roll.
Numbers are what numbers.
No, just the findings and all of that. I gave it a wind through, want to give it a second through, and I didn't get a chance to do that.
Were you able to talk to them?
No. I had the opportunity, but I could not talk. Hold on, Dr. Hall. Yeah. One other question. Just bear with me here, please.
But the procedure in the future is in place that we discussed about being able to have advanced
Yes, ma'am.
conversations with the auditors.
Yes, ma'am. And I know that the
We're all
auditor
given
did.
that opportunity as requested at the finance meeting. If we wanted to talk to the auditors, to contact them.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I did get the information via email and the person's name and a copy of it electronically and gave it a once through. Okay. All right, let's go. Take a roll call.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Trey?
Aye.
Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith? Aye. Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Secretary's aye, and Dr. Hall?
Aye. Motion carries. Recommendation to adopt a resolution authorizing a qualified construction bonds application.
Yes, the Qualified School Construction Bond Program was discussed at length earlier in the meeting, and at this time, we would like to make a recommendation. The Finance Committee recommends that the Board of Education adopt a resolution approving an application to the Illinois State Board of Education pursuant to the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009 for Qualified School Construction Bond designation for bonds to finance certain capital projects in and for the district. Further, the Finance Committee recommends that the Board of Education authorize the Board President to execute the application and direct an official of the school district to submit that application. Lastly, it is recommended that the Board of Education direct the administration to prepare a list of capital projects to be considered should the Qualified School Construction Bond funds be awarded.
Thank you. You done?
All of those,
Let me call for the motion.
you're gonna call them?
Yeah. Can I have a motion to approve the recommendation to adopt a resolution authorizing a qualified construction bonds application?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Galbraith,
Second?
second by Mrs. Sanders. Any questions or comments?
Just have a statement, just make sure we're very clear that this is just to apply for the, for the possibility of getting this into this program. It is not issuing a debt.
That is correct.
And my one question is the term certain, you use the term certain. We weren't specific if in fact the bonds or we are accepted in the application process. Will we be more explicit about what certainties, what certain ways that we will spend the funding?
The board will be looking at that in January.
Okay. To determine?
To prioritize the projects based on the list.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no further questions, Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Toure?
No.
And Mrs. Gasparo?
Yes.
Mrs. Galbraith?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Secretary's aye. Dr. Hall?
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Recommendation to adopt notice of intent to sell bonds resolution.
If the qualified school construction bonds are awarded to the district, the community would save roughly $22 million in interest in the next 20 years. Additionally, the existing tax obligation, which includes a 44% hike between 2016 and 2023, will be restructured. It's important to note again that the proposed resolution does not authorize the issuance of debt in any way. It simply allows the board to call a public hearing concerning the intent to sell bonds should the district be awarded qualified school construction bonds. A recommendation from the bond consultant along with the notice of intent resolution are attached for your review and consideration. Therefore, it is the Finance Committee's recommendation that the Board of Education adopt the resolution authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $15.5 million for the purpose of improving the site of, building and equipping in addition to, and altering, repairing, and equipping the Crete Monee Middle School building. Additionally, the Finance Committee recommends that the Board of Education schedule a public hearing for January 19th, 2016 to discuss the board's intent.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the recommendation to adopt notice of intent to sell bonds of resolution? To sell bonds resolution.
Here, you got that? Okay.
Moved by Mrs. Gasparo,
Second.
second by Mrs. Sanders. Any questions?
Just again, point out that this is not any financial obligation. This is just if we are approved into the program, it doesn't mean we're issuing any debt right now. A statement.
And I guess, well, that's a good point, Mrs. Gasparo. That says basically to the public as well for our communications department, there's a time span in which we have the opportunity to communicate this information well from the time we get the information so that when the decision needs to be made, as she said, we're not making the decision now to actually issue bonds, but certainly to have the opportunity, leaving the door open. So I would encourage strongly that we articulate that information as fervently as we can to ensure that the mass public understands what their opportunities are, or if people don't see it as an opportunity, however it is.
Keep them informed is what I'm hearing specifically.
Well, we'll hear about that in our strategic communication plan.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Secretary, please call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Toure? No. And Mrs. Gasparo?
Yes.
Mrs. Galbraith?
Aye.
And Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Secretary is aye. Dr. Hall?
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Recommendation to adopt capital project reimbursement resolution.
Yes. In accordance with Board Policy 4.40 on debt management, the Board of Education shall consider all practical precautions and proactive measures to avoid any financial decision which will negatively impact the district. The resolution that is included with this recommendation was discussed during the October and December Finance Committee meetings. Again, it is important to note that the proposed resolution does not authorize the issuance of debt in any way. The resolution simply provides the flexibility to reimburse the district should debt be issued to fund the middle school project. The resolution is a precautionary measure aligned with board policy, and a recommendation to that effect is attached for your review and consideration. The Finance Committee does recommend that the Board of Education adopt a resolution expressing intent regarding certain capital expenditures to be reimbursed from proceeds of a debt obligation if appropriate.
May I have a motion to approve the recommendation to adopt capital project reimbursement resolution? Moved by Mrs. Galbraith,
Second.
second by Mr. Brown. Any questions? Secretary, please call the roll.
Mrs. Galbraith? Aye. Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
And Mr. Toure?
No.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
And Secretary's aye. Dr. Hall?
Aye, thank you. Motion carries. Recommendation to award student behavioral system for Crete Monee High School. Mr. Lyle.
Good evening. During last month's Finance Committee, we discussed the need for us to renew our contract with our student behavioral application. We looked over 3 competitive vendors and saw that renewing the contract with Classic Contract would be the most or the lowest responsible bid. So it's my recommendation that we renew our contract with Classic Contract at an annual cost of $9,350.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the recommendation to award student behavioral system for Crete Monee High School?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Teray,
Second.
second by Mrs. Galbraith. Any questions? Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith? Aye. Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
Mr. Teray?
Aye.
Secretary's aye. Dr. Hall?
Aye, thank you. Motion carries. Recommendation to award student behavioral devices for Crete Monee High School.
Yes, during our finance committee, we also explored the options of upgrading the devices to run the actual student behavioral applications. We looked at 3 individual competitors and saw that Tiger Direct to be the most responsible bid. It is my recommendation that we grant Tiger Direct the one-time cost of $9,390.58 for the devices in Classical Track.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the recommendation to award student behavioral devices for Crete Monee High School?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sanders,
Second.
second by Mr. Teray. Any questions?
I have one.
Yes.
You're using 2 different vendors. Are they compatible? Is there, I'm not sure I clearly understand this, but you're taking Classical Track for one thing, Tiger Direct for another. Do they talk to each other?
Yes, they do.
Thank you.
And these costs are, or they have already been factored in from your budget, right?
Yes, they have.
Okay.
Okay.
Just a quick question. We had a question at the community forum, as well as, I think Sue is still here. The machinery that is going to be used, the device, how does it, and I don't know, Dr. Harden, you're back there?
Yes.
How does this machinery, is it used? We got information that says that students aren't using or are alleged to not be utilizing the ID system well. So now that you have this walking kind of wand, what is the, just give me some understanding about how we might maybe eliminate or make an impact on this alleged scenario that we're facing with our guest teachers.
Before you answer that, I'm sorry, Susan, can I get clarity? Were you referring to the high school or the middle school or both?
Well, the 6th and the 8th, because they're going there, and I know, I've always known that they get some penetration with attorneys and stuff, and I always try to, suggest to younger kids, when you get to the high school, things are gonna be different when you don't have your IDs, and your trainers, so that was my biggest concern.
Which school, though? So you're saying the middle school? Oh, 6th grade.
But last night, the comment was all the schools. So that's the question.
I also wondered why in the middle school, and this is just my own thought, a couple years back when I worked in high school, I loved that thing that they had to go back and get their charting slip and stuff and bring slip to the teacher. And I thought, back then, why did you do the middle school, you had to use school, you had to see it in the high school. That is nothing to do with it. My concern was just to see how, if we have as guest teachers, in a packet when we go there, and every
And I wasn't suggesting, all I'm saying is that this tool that you have, so it's not specific to what she's saying, but again, last night, the information that we understood, and I spoke with Susan a little bit earlier, back in the back, these are the schools who have this ID process. So if we're addressing it, we may as well, because I think your statement was about consistency and why all of the buildings aren't following a process or protocol. So as the building leader, explain to me how this can be alleviated, whether it's a guest teacher or a teacher. And I understood because I contacted schools and principals today and asked the question. It didn't appear to be a problem according to them, meaning that I said to Susan, no one has reported that this is a major issue. Again, for it to be brought to the board level, I want to know when we utilize these things, are they going to help mitigate this process at all, or should that be not an expectation? Go ahead, Dr. Harden.
Let me start to answer your concern, Ms. Sanders, your inquiry. This software and the hardware that go with this classical program will assist in the process in a few different ways. Number one, we always try to balance it in something. What we want to balance it into is increase instructional time. And as it stands, without this software, students can leave 8-200 to walk to the attendance office, which could take a reasonable half hour.
I've seen it.
Right, when you stop and you hug your boyfriend and you get water and you go to the bathroom and you get pop, and all that other kind of stuff. And this this reduces that walk time. It significantly reduces the walk time. Not just that, but the software is specific to the barcode on the
ID, so they have to be wearing.
So they will have to have the ID on their person. Now, and ma'am, I hear your concern as a guest teacher, and I see your concern. I see your concern as an administrator, as someone in the building, and realistically, we want our students to wear their IDs. We stand at the doors, we tell them to wear their IDs. If they come without their IDs, we do these ID checks in the morning, and we're trying to do it almost every class period. We go from class to class, teacher trying to give us thumbs up, thumbs down, or we catch them at the door, and we'll send them to the dean's office to get a temporary ID pass, or ID card, excuse me. The temps are a sticker. Sometimes, lots of times, the student will peel them off. Lots of students have their IDs, the string will have broken, or the hole that's punched in the ID will have broken and it won't sit on the string anymore. The student will shove it in his or her wallet. I would conservatively guess that 95% of our students have their IDs all of the time. I would conservatively guess that 80% of them have them displayed around their neck properly. Sometimes in a high school of 1,700, 10 feels like 1,000. 50 feels like 1,000. But when we do the numbers, if 50 kids come in without their IDs and we have a line of 50 getting temporary IDs, that line looks like it's for that also means that 1,600 of them are doing it the right way if we have 150. Some of it is perception, but there is some reality in it too. And that reality is what we have to own and what we have to work on, making sure that all students are following the expectation. And when there is a guest teacher, of course, let's all be real about when guest teachers came in 1990 when I was in high school. We played the game, what's your name, Doctor? We did things that we should not have done. Of course, we're working on our students with that. That has much more to do with our character education and pushing to make sure our students are doing quality character things, building the internal wealth and character of our students, and not just the IDs. The IDs are a representation of something, but the bigger issue is that we build the character of our students. And that's something that I would certainly own as a principal that we need to increase and do better with. But as far as quick answers to the question, as far as the software, absolutely it will help because it will hold students accountable. Because if they don't have an ID, we can't scan them. And then the question becomes, not only are you late, now you don't have an ID. Now we can intervene at a different level.
Okay.
Sorry.
No,
Can I
that's
ask
fine,
you,
and that helps.
Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry. Where did the children go to get a replacement ID?
Currently, our students go to the dean's office, which is as soon as you walk in the front door, right inside.
Or where do they go to get passes?
To the attendance office. When you walk all the way down to the front of the building on the right-hand side. So it's a
And this is going to eliminate that.
This will eliminate that walk.
Okay. And the reason I'm bringing that up is I have been in the high school at least twice where I've seen the attendance office full of students, and I've heard the attendance clerk screaming at the top of her lungs at children. And that's a concern for me. To the point where I was checking in and the double doors are closed and I hear that. So I'm just saying that, you know, for the board members to know as far as, and anyone else, and that's why I'm asking, connecting it, that this will help to eliminate that situation. Because I guess having a lot of children in the attendance office trying to get passes, of course, can be a situation and is obviously causing someone to be very overwhelmed.
Well, just as we.
But I think you need to address that as well, as far as screaming at the top of your lungs at children, which is inappropriate.
And that 1000% is wrong, and no one should be doing that. Just as we're trying to build character in our students, we're working on some staff things. I too took notes as the community spoke today about some specific examples of how they felt, you know, and even with that, you know, sometimes they take one and it seems like 100, but taking notes specific to address those as well. Even today, we had conversations with the staff at a staff meeting about communication. We're going to start a series of professional development just on communication. And if we're going to build the character of our students, we have to build the character of ourselves as well. And that's from the principal's office all the way through the staff and all the way through every student in this building. Character.
Thank you.
Can you answer the final question? There was a statement made last night regarding students are led by examples, and those examples being their teachers and staff members in the building. So what is I said to somebody, it's not a board policy, but it would be an administrative policy. So what is the administrative procedure, if you will, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I know it's not a board policy, but what's the administrative procedure for staff wearing their IDs as well as students collectively?
Absolutely. Well, every person in this building should have an ID. I know when the central office administrators and the superintendent.
We have to wear ours too.
And the board members, everyone should have an ID. Visitors should have to scan in at the front desk. They scan their driver's license. They put on a temporary ID we call a Raptor badge, which is a sticker with their picture on it and their name and where they're going. At all points in the building, everyone here should be identified. This is a small city. We have our own water tower. At any given point, we have about 2,000 people walking around here, and without sufficient identification, we don't know who that person is. And to be honest, I mean, like I said, we have 2,000 people here, and we have a lot of doors. And it's easy to get into a door and just blend right in. So for that reason, every person should be identified, and that should be visible.
And everyone, that's in the administrative procedure, so everyone knows it. Whether everyone follows it is a different story.
That is correct. That is the administrative procedure and expectation. I will stand and be very honest that we, standing here talking and listening, that's something that we probably need to continue to share with our staff, just as it is a student expectation. We need to continue to share that with our staff. We do with visitors, we've been much tougher on visitors. I don't want to say tougher, but much, I need a good word for tougher, more consistent, right? We've been much more consistent with visitors over the past year as to, hey, I'm sorry, I know we know you, I've done it with you.
You've done it
with my
done with the superintendent. Everybody who comes in
Yes.
gets checked by Ray.
That's correct, by Officer Ray, and we make sure they have what they need to be in this building.
So Superintendent Cunningham, I guess since it's being aligned with board policy, if you could ensure that, since he's the only principal here, that all principals understand the same process, either should be already in their administrative practice for both their, for the student body, for their employees, et cetera. I mean, if it's not being communicated, there's no expectation of following the rules.
It'll be communicated again, and the expectation will be there.
I'm concerned about the repetitiveness. I think she was talking about the the young people that just refuse to show their ID, and what we are doing to ensure that their behavior is modified so that they understand that it's a requirement and they need to do that. Because I don't want to see a revolving door, the same kids being defiant about it and refusing to do it. The objective here is to modify the behavior. So that's what discipline's about. So I'm hoping that you're not having the same children and the same faces going in that office, driving that woman crazy who's screaming at them. You know, she's obviously stressed out. Something's wrong, you know, and she shouldn't be screaming at them, but there's there's a catalyst for that. So I hope it's not the same children and you're addressing the problem. There's a modification of behavior.
I started right there, and I didn't notice that, but anyway, so I just wanted to do a meeting with guest teachers that we used to have years ago, where we can all come together and see if we're all on the same page and if we're the same kind of issues, because I don't see a lot of this. There's a few I do see, we might talk, and then I just want everybody to put their ID, that's it, and not to be lip about it when I ask, who are you that I'm sending to the bathroom when they don't have any?
May I, if I can say two things. Number one, Mr. Toure, yes, and we're trying to define we're trying to find the balance between, I forgot and the student being insubordinate. Because ultimately, it's not the ID card, it's the behavior of insubordination. And, you know, not wearing an ID is not necessarily something that we can intervene with, but insubordination is where we try to find that student, we try to get them to comply. Absolutely, and we work those systems to try to get there. And don't get me wrong, we have a bunch of 15-year-old boys that don't remember anything, and girls too. But we have, I mean, and some of them are repeat offenders who just, oh, I forgot my ID at home. We have that. We have that. And we have some returns.
They are not repeat offenders.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that, but yes, very poor choice of word.
High flyers.
High flyers.
Over and over and over again. Students that, boy, I'm sorry, and
No, that's okay. That's a buzz phrase that was,
No, it's not
that
okay.
was, that was a buzz phrase that was spoken around this district for a long time. So that's okay.
Bothers me. I'm sorry. But we have students that do it over and over again. And a lot of times it's not malicious or bad intent. It's just forgetfulness. So we have to work with them on those, we call them executive skills, to teach those soft skills, because those are the same skills that students carry in the job, you know, that. And those skills are important. A lot of jobs you have to wear your ID. And if you can't remember in high school, well, part of high school is preparation. So that's the first thing. The next thing, if I can, just really quickly, we have spoken, Superintendent and I have spoken extensively about the Substitute Academy. Ms. Hirsch and I have spoken about it as well, and even down to building level. Of course, it's no secret we've had a few subs in high school this year for a few different reasons, and we do agree that there needs to be some additional training. Those trainings that we've discussed have been, we've been looking for an exact time. We have outlined a pretty good program to start in the spring semester, and we're just seeking the exact time to put it into place to ensure that we get the most bang for our buck and the most guest teachers in as possible, so that they can have training on things like classroom management, or how to use the Skyward system, how to take attendance, how to send a student to the dean's office, or it could be something as simple as pedagogy. You know, what are the 6+1 mathematics strategies? All of that kind of stuff. So there are a lot that when a guest teacher comes in, we just expect you to know, right? You just show up and we think you know it, and that's not fair. So we've discussed at length, and that's something that we will have in place this spring. It's just trying to identify the exact time. And I think we have a time identified. If I share it now, you'll hold me to it, and we will. Stop talking, James.
Thank you.
I have one last question. Did you win the contest?
I thought my sweater was regular.
Candy cane tie.
Yeah, where's your ID?
It's not around your neck. No, it's weird all the time.
Still in the school.
Susan's got hers.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Yeah. Going back to this Plasco Track Hero service, the service one. So this company actually is going to perform some service, not just selling us parts. Is that correct?
That was the actual first action item for the services, yes. They're gonna actually be providing the application for the devices that we are currently.
So they're going to be on site installing?
No,
What?
we already have Plaxico in our district. They're gonna be renewing the actual license that we are currently using. So once we actually award the actual bid to renew the contract with Plaxico, and the devices are actually shipped to our district, they will be installed on the devices remotely. There will be no actual personnel that need to come in to actually install.
It says on-site implementing or implementation of training. So for $1,800 for one day. It's on page 542. I'm just trying to get a little clarity. And if that's the case, do we need a certificate of insurance or it's a little bit vague. So I just kind of spotted that, and forgive me for coming in the 11th hour. Is this somewhat?
4542 doesn't have that $1,800.
Yeah, yeah. On page, they're providing us a service, not just parts. That's what I'm trying to get clear. Yeah, on-site training.
Our staff is supposed to receive actual training on the devices, on how to use the software with the actual, with the devices that we purchased from Tiger Direct. But from my conversation with the representative, Matt Spaghetti, there was to be no actual person coming on site training. They were supposed to do this remotely.
Okay, it says on-site training for one day for $1,800.
We were going to have an actual training session, but the on-site component was not discussed.
So they're not going to be on site?
Not coming on site. But we are having training for our staff for it.
It's listed. If you look at the top, you see the.
Okay, so that's coming down. That's not being carried over.
I'm sorry, if you take a look at 1,700 times that 5.5, and that equals your 93, and it comes all the way down to 93. Offered and available is on-site implementation and training for $1,800 for a day. We did not take that, sir.
We are going to receive training on the actual or the software from here.
Okay.
So, I mean, no certificate.
Okay, I'm clear. Thank you.
And we need clarity on this requirement for certificates of insurance. Exactly what we are asking. To my understanding, the wrestling trip was prolonged because we were requesting a certificate of insurance for an overnight trip. Are we requesting that for all overnight trips?
I understand.
Are we just, we need to clarify exactly what we are asking, because at that point, then we need to request insurance for, every single overnight trip, which we have not been doing.
And I think we was going to have some clarity. We was going to bring it to the policy committee and talk about it and get it all,
Because I don't want to be unrealistic with that.
No, we just need to be consistent and know, per definition when it's called for.
And the breakdown in
So, and
communication is for
we're not
everybody.
quite there yet.
I just said the breakdown in communication because it seemed not to be communicated. So if it's not a procedure, again, that people were aware of, clearly, I don't know what, because didn't we hear in the finance meeting, they weren't sure where the ball was dropped. So, and that's affecting students. And actually, did we ever get clarity? Laura, you weren't at the finance meeting, but there's this discussion about any field trip is under the academic, it's under your curriculum department. Is that what we understood? If it's a field trip.
All overnights.
All overnight
including
field trips
athletics.
go through curriculum, yes.
Overnights.
Okay, and so it was stated that the wrestling field trip was delayed for months.
The wrestling field trip was submitted to my office in the second part of October. The application was incomplete, and part of that was the insurance. It was returned to the high school. When it came back to my office, it still did not have insurance, and then that's what took the extra month, was to get the insurance from the school district, proof of insurance that they were covered. Not that we were named an additional insured party, but we simply are providing proof that the school district that is holding the event has insurance that will cover.
That's a little different, yeah.
Which is not a normal practice, really, to request that from a
It went
school.
through, actually, this is probably the only time that I had this experience where it actually went completely through the chain of command all the way up to the superintendent's office. And then their policy, if you notice in the packet, it's about 13 pages long because they have a different policy for every different kind of insurance, so they sent it all to us.
And so you said in October, so did we say that in October that we wanted, when was that discussed?
Yeah.
Saying what? Certificates of insurance, but we clearly stated last board meeting that there needed to be a conversation regarding what we want exactly.
Right.
So that's not something that has taken place.
No.
The
But
conversation.
So there's
it sounds
confusion.
like this is just the opposite. Somebody is requesting from us to provide them proof of insurance.
No,
What?
no, it's an overnight, and we requested their insurance.
Which now we're learning can take up to a month.
And this was different because this was a new wrestling tournament that we had went through for an overnight. We
The
hadn't had a.
certificate of insurance could be issued in an hour.
Well, not if
Half
that's not
hour.
your policy. If it's your policy to go through a change of command, I'm sorry, chain of command, we can't tell them how they get us information.
They were going to a school district, so it was their first time receiving a request to have a copy of their certificate of insurance. So the first person didn't know, so they
Because that's
bumped it
not
up to the next level, and it found its way all the way up to the top, and then we got it. But it took, a few phone calls, and it had to run its course before we sent it. Once we got to the superintendent's office, we had it immediately.
So we're going to employ that type of procedure. Now we need to look at the dates for submitting, the time frame for submitting applications to go on overnight trips.
Has probably extended, where they had a longer period. Right.
Well, I think in this particular case, part of it was that the application that, when it reached my desk, it was incomplete, only part of that being the insurance. So I had to send it back.
So was that communicated, that need was there? Have we communicated that to the entire district?
Yes.
So every teacher, principal, whoever knows, they need to submit insurance when they're submitting
It's on
for
the form.
overnight
It's-
trips.
It's on the form.
Okay.
So, and we assist when
And we
they
are
have
confident
difficulty
that they know
getting it. My secretary makes the calls and we track it down.
So it's on the form, and you said, are we confident that everyone knows it?
I can't say I'm confident that everybody who knows goes through. It is on the form. It is the way that you are supposed to go through it. And we've had other pieces that end up hitting our office or Laura's office and has to be sent back to the building to be redone properly. We've done that a little bit better. During the first year, we had a couple times that board members found that things were incomplete. And we have stepped up our game to make sure that that's not getting here first. We want it to be right by the time you guys see it.
So it would be worth just simply, since there's no certainty in the process, and we've been down this particular road, to have a discussion. And the only reason for sure I know we need to do that is because, number one, this trip was in jeopardy. And of course, the only people that were going to hear about that is the school board, because we delayed a group of students from going someplace and had absolutely nothing to do with it by right. And, I can take blame where blame is due, but the fact of the matter is, if we have a procedure in place, we need to operate, because it was my understanding you have the athletic director who who wasn't specifically for sure, I mean, and maybe even the transition of what was to take place. Again, it's not enough to say that it's on the
On the
paper, and
form.
God forbid,
Right.
we are in an educational institution, so reading is fundamental, but certainly, you know, again, that's too critical of an issue and too critical of an oversight, because again, had we not, the person hadn't come to us in the finance meeting, these kids would be out of a trip.
Well, we actually had the return form and we had, I mean, it was not in jeopardy. It was coming to this meeting because we were tracking it from my office. So it just hadn't gotten here because of the delay in getting the form.
So it just
I'm
wasn't
just concerned
communicated
with
to the parents.
2-month, that's a 2-month
Well,
period.
It is, but it was, we got it back, but we didn't have the insurance in time for the November board meeting.
Mhm.
And then my secretary was making the calls to get it so that we could bring it today. So I had a personal conversation with Mr. Tobias when we returned it originally, and I talked to Dr. Harden. So, you know, it was, I don't think it was off anybody's radar. So I don't know if.
Well, just that it can be off the parents' radar or the constituent that came in to speak to us about it if they're not getting feedback. And if my memory serves me, again, they were asking us at a finance meeting, what's the process? Why is it taking so long? It seems to me that perhaps someone from the high school or you know, like you said, Mr. Tobias, someone could have stated, you don't have to know all the particulars, I guess, but that we're in receipt of it. In fact, in the finance meeting, we were asking Dr. Williams, because we thought maybe I think it was said that it was being handled out of the business office. We later understood by Dr. Williams, I think, that it actually went to your office. So
They all, yeah.
we were all,
They all come through me.
you know.
Anytime we change a procedure, that needs to be communicated, especially when it affects the entire district. It needs to be communicated. So I don't know if you all did that, if you sent something out saying, hey, this is something new, we need to do blah, 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 blah. That's necessary. And then I'm not for putting anything on a form if we're still saying we need to have a solid conversation to know exactly what we want to do, what qualifies, what does not qualify for this procedure. That's my opinion.
I'd like to ask real quick to make sure that I'm clear on this. I mean, the thing that we've heard a lot of times, Mr. Brown has asked us for the certificate of insurance. But it was my understanding that as long as you've been doing these overnight trips, that there was supposed to be a certificate of insurance in there. And
I think, well, at least my understanding was the confusion became whether we needed to be named as an insured party on the certificate of insurance. And I know when we had this conversation, I think it was it last month or the month before, Mr. Gleason was here, it was, and he was talking with us kind of off to the side here, but it was, if we're bringing somebody into district, they need to provide us a certificate with us named as an insured party. But if we're going out, it's covered under their insurance. And our form says that we need to provide a certificate of insurance so that where we're going, we have proof that we're covered under their, not that we're named, but that we're covered. So I think it's two different things, yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you and the attorneys, who reviews our forms? Just so, I mean, it just minimizes the potential. Do we have like an oversight where we review what it is that we have on forms? I'm sure, is it outdated or is it always evolving? Is it a working document?
Well, that form we updated a couple of years ago because we wanted to add some information about volunteers to make sure that, you know, we had that they had followed procedures.
With the new okay.
So that form was updated, I believe it was 2
So, but
years
it's
ago.
kind of a working document. You can go in there based on like new.
Right, we can update
procedures.
the form and the form is available that, you know, we have documents on our intranet and we have that available. But, you know, I think some of it is it comes
we take a look at it to make sure it's complete. We look for, I know, we look for spelling errors, you know.
Don't go there, Laura.
To make sure that, well, it's, you know, sometimes they come and we're missing dollar amounts. We're not clear where they're going to stay. I mean, sometimes it's little things, but we want to make sure that everything is in order. And one thing that we're looking for now is to make sure that we have a certificate of insurance. And if it's not there, we're facilitating that and helping the schools get that, or we get that for them.
Let me just make this last statement. I thought it was never my intent that if we embarked upon a contract outside, the district did, we was doing some type of activity on the outside, that we did not provide whoever we embarked with, you know, whatever participation we invoked upon, that we did not provide her certificate of insurance unless that entity asked for it or requested it. So it's vice versa. If, you know, if it's someone coming here, then we will ask them for a certificate of insurance. So not going out, not for us but we should be ready to have that available if they ask.
I'm not trying to extend this conversation out a minute longer.
Too late.
But it was the process when we came in that whenever we went overnight, we had insurance. That, I mean, if we need to change that, if we need to look at that in policy and have a discussion about it, we can do that. But it was the process, and we wanted to make sure everything was there.
And I'd also like it added to the education committee agenda, the whole process for applying for the overnight.
Okay, and
Field trip.
did you get that? Dr. Spence and I were actually talking today about administrative procedures for field trips, because we have ones that take place during the school day, and then we have the overnight, so it's kind of split.
So you wanted to go under administrative procedure versus having a discussion in policy?
No, we were just looking at as we're writing administrative procedures, we were looking at the forms and the draft documents that we were given, and we were saying it's two separate things. We have the school day field trip that runs through the schools with a form, and then we have an overnight field trip that comes through my office to the Board of Education for approval.
Okay.
Which follows the policy.
Thank you. I do believe we need to take a roll. We're off of this action for the devices.
For the student behavior one-time costs. Excuse me. Mr. Toure?
Aye.
Mrs. Gasparo? Mrs. Galbraith? Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Secretary's aye. Dr. Hall?
Aye, thank you. I do believe that we need a motion to remove item number 11 as it was accidentally added twice.
11.
Yes, it's the Maxim Staffing Solutions again.
Moved.
Yeah, that was moved. The motion to remove item number 13A11 from the agenda. Moved by Mr. Toure.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Sanders. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All righty, got through those. There is a need for a close.
So we don't need to, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
There is a need for a closed session to There is a need for a closed session to discuss student discipline as well as pending litigation. May I have a motion to go into close for these purposes?
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Galbraith.
Second.
Second by Mr. Toure. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Toure?
Aye.
Mrs. Gasparo? Aye. Mrs. Galbraith?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Secretary's aye. Dr. Hall?
Aye, we are enclosed and we look to reconvene within 1 hour
Or before.
In 30 minutes.
or before.
DeRay?
Aye.
Secretary's aye, and Dr. Hall.
Aye. May I have a motion to approve the recommendation to transfer student to 2016, recommendation to transfer student 2016-1B to the Crete Monee Alternative Program for the duration of his or her current disciplinary consequence.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Galbraith.
Second.
Second by Mr. Teray. Any questions? Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Teray?
Aye.
Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Secretary's aye, Dr. Hall.
Aye, thank you. Any old business? New business.
Wait, she said she has a question.
Do we have any applicants for District 7?
Yes, as of today, we have 2.
Thank you.
And it closes tomorrow at close of business, 4:30,
Yes,
the application process.
yes. Can either be dropped off or has to be postmarked by tomorrow. So we may get some on Thursday.
So how long do we need for those, like, okay, tomorrow, that was a question that I did think of. The deadline is tomorrow, say 5 o'clock, whatever.
Mhm.
How long do you allow for mail? Do we allow 5 business days? What do we allow? Like, post office says allow 5 to 7 days or whatever, you know, when you're mailing something. How long do we allow?
We were scheduled to get the information to the board on Friday, but if something comes in and it's post-dated on tomorrow's date, then we'll take it.
Okay,
Mhm.
right. But if something did come in after we had been given the original ones and it was postmarked.
If it's
16,
postmarked, yes.
we would get it forwarded to us.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any new business? May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Galbraith, second by Mrs. Sanders. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
We can talk fast, can't we? Move. Second, move.